All of the food we eat and much of the clothing we wear comes from plants and animals that are raised on farms. Farms are different in type, in size, and even in name.
Welcome to Barn Talk. What happens at the barn stays in the barn, but not today. We're going to let it all out for you guys. Today is going to be another great guest episode. We have just had back-to-back great episodes with some awesome people, and today is going to be no different. But before we get into it, you guys know the drill. If you get any value from the show, all that we ask is you share it out with the people that you know. The more that you guys do that, the more you help our show grow. We don't run ads to promote the show. It's all through you guys, all through organic word of mouth, and we found that that's the best way to grow a podcast. So we appreciate all of you that do that. Another thing you can do to help us out here at Barn Talk is leave a review on Spotify or Apple. The more you guys do that, the more credible you make our show, which in turn allows us to have great guests come to the barn. And we also just love hearing your overall thoughts about what you think about the show, what we can do to improve it, what are your favorite parts, all those things. It takes you 5 seconds, and it really does help us out a lot. Last thing you can do to support Barn Talk is you can go sign up for our weekly newsletter, joinbarntalk.com. We're putting out a weekly newsletter, basically everything going on in rural America. We're talking about it and giving our thoughts on it. It's not a regurgitated podcast episode. It's really just what's happening, our thoughts on it. And we have a goal right now. If we get to 10,000 newsletter subscribers, we're going to throw a live event right here at the barn on the farm. Have some good bourbon, have some Busch Light, bring on some speakers that have been on the show that have really made an impact, and just have a good old time. So we're trying to really make that thing hum and grow and add value in any way we can. So we appreciate you guys for helping us out in all those ways. We have an amazing support base in you guys, and we just appreciate it.
You know, I just thought of something while I was sitting here. You can't do a live read to save your ass, but man, you do that intro like so good.
You think my live reads are bad?
No, I'm just messing with you. They're pretty good.
I don't know. Sometimes I stumble, but it's pretty much ingrained in my head now. Yeah. People probably get tired of. Most people probably skip it.
I couldn't do it. Like I can do a live read, like I can do 30 seconds pretty well, but if I had to do that, we'd be shutting this off and restarting it.
Yeah,
it's a lot to get through.
It's a lot to get through, but hey, practice makes perfect, and this is only our 200th plus episode. So we've done it a few times.
You're a hell of a unit.
Thanks. Well, so are you. Planting's done. Got all the seed in the ground.
Yeah,
that's good.
We finished up, and just as the weather is starting to turn. So this week is the first week we've had that I think it's going to be. The low was this morning, I think it was 46, and the rest of the week, low's going to be in the mid-50s and highs in the 70s pretty much every day, close to 80 one day. So I think this corn will get up out of the ground pretty good. There's a little of it out there. It wasn't perfect when we put it in. There were some places that were a little wet. There's a lot of moisture come up at night, so when you'd start in the morning, you would have a little mud on the closing wheels, but got it in. Depth seems to be good, and it doesn't seem to be any place where we didn't get the trench closed. I mean, it'd be nice to get a warm rain, maybe a nice warm, not a pounding rain, if I can order it up, and this corn ought to come up real good. And there's some corn up that was planted 2 weeks ago, that sat there, and man, this morning looking really good. So yeah, I think we're off to a great start, and hopefully it's a good growing season. It's political season. And so, as many of you know, we are based out of the great state of Iowa, and we got a governor's race coming up. And our guest today, he is one of those guys that have thrown their hat in the race. This fall, we're going to have to hire a new governor. And we're going to interview one of those candidates that have applied for the job. We were supposed to have him on. We were actually supposed to have him on a few weeks ago, and it was that Friday that we got those really bad winds, and they didn't really want the tour bus to get blown over, so we had to reschedule it. There is a lot going on. We got questions about the Farm Bill. We got some questions about field tile, and we really just want to know how Zach stacks up against his opponents and his thoughts on the political scene, and why the heck would anybody want to get into politics anyway? I don't know. He's a brave soul. So without any further ado, let's get into it. Building prices went up 3% a year every year. And then there were a few times in there that they went up 5 or 6. And there was one year that they didn't go up at all. And that's the only time. I mean, everything just...
Yeah, this is what I tell people about inflation too, is like prices don't go down. Like if you have deflation, it's actually an indicator of something very bad is about to happen in the economy. Yep. And because also people will just keep waiting out for a lower and lower price and just keeps plummeting and plummeting. It's like, so we've dug this very huge hole for ourselves. And now the way out of it is we have to grow. And and especially in our rural communities, it's a very difficult problem to solve. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Like what I've been telling people too is, in the 1980s, Terry Brand said, talked a ton about value-added agriculture. Mm-hmm. Like, what can we do to bring more value to what we're growing, what we're producing? And that gave rise, honestly, to the ethanol industry. Mm-hmm. And now we're at a new point where, I mean, we can start talking about this at some point, but where we're having to find other things. And even so, I know people that are agreeing to things they don't even want to do, wind farms, whatever it might be, solar, because it's like, how else am I going to keep my ground? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Or even people I've talked to that have been, well, I'm going to sell this 40 to keep farming. I'm like, that doesn't work. Like, that will not work. And I get it, but you're not going to get that ground back. Mm-hmm. It'd be different if you had to close down a branch of an operation, but then you can just reopen that branch of the operation. But when you got this family land, anyways, we can go into, sorry.
No, you're good. I mean, we're live, boys. So Zach Lahn, welcome to Barn Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
You like how we just sneak that in there? We just start her up and go.
Yeah, this is good. Well, yeah, I'm very happy to be on here. I've been seeing you guys' clips forever. You've made a tremendous impact in like just getting out there. I need to learn from you on that. But now these farm issues are things I'm talking about all the time. This is why I got in the race. The whole reason I got in the race, when I was announcing my campaign on the front steps of our farmhouse in Belle Plaine, which I can tell the story about that, but it was what I'm hearing from my neighbors, what I'm seeing myself. I'm watching like this disintegration of culture and economies in rural Iowa. And it's not just Iowa. You guys know this is around the Midwest. Mm-hmm. And I just tell people, this is not on accident. Like, there has been consolidation after consolidation. And like, we have to start fighting back.
100% we do. And we're a big fan of you as well. I mean, when you came on to the podcasting scene with Tucker Carlson, Sean Ryan, I mean, those are heavy hitting podcasts, man. So you've been doing a hell of a job on the campaign trail, and it's just an honor to have you here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Something I think about that is, I think something that Trump and Vance did well was a kind of end around the media, which by the way, that's where it's going, because we know we can't trust them. Mm-hmm. Like we know we can't. Like, they're still pushing things like COVID era narratives. Mm-hmm. It's like, this, guys, like, we're so far past this. This gaslighting has just got to stop.
Yeah. Yeah. And what I think is interesting in the political world is there's like a chain, and it's more, I'd say it's more national than it is state or local politics. But even there a little bit, the traditional rise of people within a party, social media and private journalism and podcasts have totally upended that, because there is a pile of people out there that would be candidates, except now then you can't run on talking points and you can't run on being able to say something and have the media put it out. You have to actually be able to sit down with people and articulate over a long period of time, like the long form. Yep. And there's a whole group of politicians that they can't do that.
No, you're dead on. When people talk about this, my biggest problem is, like, if I'm on a TV interview, is getting it down to a 30-second answer. Because also, that's just like, the deck is stacked against people that really want to think about these ideas. And I say this, I read this quote once a long time ago that said something like, a bumper sticker is a substitute for real thought. And that's all we've had in politics for how long? And now, I tell people, I had this political consultant I heard once said that, hey, when you're at an event with all these people, you need to imagine every one of them is, walking around with buttons on them, and those are issues they care about.
Yep.
And your job is to read those and push them so they like you. I'm like, you guys just don't get it.
Yep.
But if you go to a political event right now, you can tell who's doing it. They'll walk in and every single talking point will come out in 35 seconds.
Yep.
I'm like, tell people, those are the people you cannot trust.
100%. Yeah. I think the term that somebody said to me that stuck with me is just citizen media.
Yep.
Citizen media is the new wave because it's just people only want to listen to people that they trust. I think in the creator economy and just media in general, the people that can get the trust are the ones that are going to win the longest in the longest runway to have a brand. I wanted to ask you this question later on, but since we're on the topic of politics, what do you think's one thing, if you could change one thing in the American, just how politics are, how it's run, how we go about it in this country, what would you change? What would you change about it?
Well, I think when I think about the biggest issue, let's talk about our country for a second. Because I'm running for governor, and there's a real reason for that. Because I look at Washington, D.C., I'm just like, this place is a disaster.
Yeah. I
mean, the good people are being ostracized. The people that are entrenched and want to get payouts or, trade stocks or, get kickbacks, they're the ones that are rising. And it's, somebody's asked me a question like this, they're like, what is the biggest issue facing America today? And I thought about it for a second. I'm like, honestly, well, first off, I think there's a spiritual issue facing our country. We're there's right and wrong, there's truth and lies, and long form content, by the way, is how you can dig into that. But I said this, I was like, I actually think it's that our country's run by unelected people and we actually don't know who they are.
Yeah.
I don't think there could be a bigger issue than that. So it's like, I don't know, what's the solution to that other than cleaning house and starting over. But our elected officials in Washington, D.C. have very little of consequence. I said, look, you look at any bill, these people aren't writing those bills. No. I've said, how there's that track edits on Microsoft Word. I really like to have that retrospectively on some of these bills to see which lobbyists put whatever in there, because we know that's what they're doing.
Yeah, 100%.
We have no idea. I mean, the blockchain would probably solve all that better. But that's my honest answer. If I could change something, it'd be that our elected officials actually are of consequence in Washington, D.C., because it seems as if we're running towards an authoritarian structure in government and there's just no stopping it.
Yeah.
You have kill switches on cars. Yeah. The National Endowment for Democracy gets $300 million in funding after Elon exposed it was basically a CIA front organization.
Yep.
And our Republican politicians vote yes on it. Sorry, you guys get me worked up already. No, that's probably my honest answer is we have to know who's in charge.
Yep.
Yeah. We say all the time on here, if we could find a way to get money out of politics, the lobbying is just unbelievable. I mean, you got to have money to fund the system, but the amount of politicians that are getting greased to vote on a bill this way or that way is insane, and you can't trust them. That's the thing. And I think everybody runs on all these things, all these buttons that they want to press, but when they actually get in there, when the money starts, when a deal gets put across the table to them, will they stay true to what they ran on? I don't know. And that's the thing.
And even if you, to your point, even things that get passed, the bureaucracy that actually implements that, those people that aren't elected, to your point, will it get implemented? Will it?
How do they interpret it?
Right.
That's exactly right. There's a Supreme Court ruling that it was under the Chevron doctrine, which is the idea that, bureaucrats could make their own regulations. And the Supreme Court said, no, it basically has to come through the legislative process. They can't just make things up. And it's happening in every industry. Yep. Well, the Supreme Court overturned that, saying that we could sue them to stop this. And we're not even doing it on the state level. One of the things I talk about is the role of the Attorney General's office in our state, in other states. And we have antitrust violations that are going on, anti-competitive behavior that's going on. Big companies have been running rampant that have been not checked. I've been very clear, when I'm governor, Lord willing, if I get there, the Attorney General's office is going to be very busy because I've never sued anybody in my life, but we have a lot of suits that need to happen because we're being extorted, and it's wrong. It goes back to the ideas. It's just wrong. And the monopolies are a failure of the free market. Do we believe in that or not?
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's go into the man a little bit here, because you're not just like a career politician, right? What was the epiphany? What was the moment when you were just a regular guy doing what you were doing where you said, I need to get involved and I need to do something about this. I need to get involved in this.
Like backing up a little bit, right out of college in Colorado, I worked on some political campaigns. I did that for 4 years, I think, or something like that. This is over 10 years ago now. And I've always been interested in this. I did get a little bit jaded being involved in it, seeing like, hey, like we're trying to put these people in and things aren't changing, which I still get frustrated about that. And so I largely got out of it. I went into business. I started schools. And then in 2014, our family homestead had been in the family from 1900 to 2005. Right up in Belle Plaine. And it was sold in 2005 when great grandma passed away. The same story for everybody, right? 3 brothers, my grandpa and his 2 brothers, none of them lived nearby. So they sold it. Grandma actually asked me if I wanted to buy it or wanted to use it. I said, no, I'm out in Colorado. And then when I came home, after having kids, I moved back home, and I was out there and I went to it and I said, have you ever think about selling? Let me know. And they called me a year later and I was like, they said, we're going to sell this. Do you want to buy it? I'm like, yes, 100%. I was living in Ankeny at the time. And then over the past 12 years, I've spent literally rebuilding the farm board by board. I mean, I got thousands of old pictures from my dad's cousin in Grinnell, marked out every piece of siding, counted all of it to put it back together how great grandpa built it. And I did that because I wanted my kids to understand their story, where they came from. That's the whole idea. And I was not even thinking about running for office. I'd been involved in the Belle Plaine community. There's a 1930s theater in town, the King Theater. Had been in operation since 1930 by the same family. And they told me they were thinking about selling it. Would I want to buy it? Again, I was like, yes, like we got to keep this going, because it had been shut down for about 8 months. We reopened it, got movies playing Friday, Saturday nights. And the whole thing was, I wanted my kids to want to be here. I wanted to like put a stake in the ground to defend rural communities and try to make something better myself. And then, when I heard that Governor Reynolds was stepping down, I told my wife many times, if I ever ran for anything, the only thing I'd ever want to run for is governor. I don't want to be in Washington, D.C. I don't want to be in the state legislature.
Why is that?
It's because I think you can affect real change on the issues I'm talking about. And, for a long time, I believe both left and right. I often say, people like say, oh, Republicans have done this. And I say, guys, I'm fighting the uniparty. Both sides have been bought off in many ways. And oftentimes they don't even know it. They don't even realize it. And so my wife actually kept pushing me about the seat being open. I was like, no, there's going to be somebody that runs for it. Trump's going to step in and endorse somebody, and it's just going to, be a fait accompli, be done. And then the attorney general said she wasn't running for it. And my wife's literally turned up the heat. I'm not joking. Like, my wife was basically like, you need to put up or shut up, because I talk about this stuff so much, and about agriculture especially. And so that was it. It was sort of like this idea where I had ran out of excuses. And I actually made two promises to myself. I had 2 things I wanted to have happen. One was on the business side. One was meeting somebody. And that person was Bobby Kennedy. And I had no connection to him whatsoever. But I said, hey, a lot of these Maha people are my natural base of support. I said, if this business deal gets done, which had been 2 years, hadn't been done, and I can meet him to talk to him about this, I'll do it. It's like I made a promise to God. Well, those things happen in 2 weeks. And I was like, okay, I need more requirements here. What else can I do?
Yep.
But no, it really was that. And I just said, you know what? Like, this seat hasn't been open in 20 years. And I mean this sincerely. When you actually care about these issues, in 20 years, am I going to be able to turn around and look at the state of Iowa and recognize what I grew up with?
Right.
Because it's pretty hard right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was it. Like, I've never been elected to office. I've never ran for office. There's times I wake up, most days I wake up and like, what am I doing? What have I got myself into? But the campaign is actually going very well. We're getting a ton of interest. Our events are big, and the message is resonating.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it's on us. I mean, at the end of the day, like, everybody wants, like, we gotta set the standard. Citizens are gonna have to step up and make the change. Like, we're gonna have to get involved. And like, it's kind of put up or shut up for all of us. But I mean, you're going to you're going to a different level. But that's what we need to get back to. We don't need more career politicians. We need real people that have done real things get involved in politics and do actually be for the American people. And so that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about the homestead. Like, tell us about the farm and the history of it. Cause I mean, we love hearing about ag. You know, our audience loves it, loves the history, loves the legacy. That's what a lot of us are doing it for, you know, is carrying this on to the next generation. So
how much time do we have? See, like, I mean this sincerely, like, these are the things I love to talk about. I actually don't like talking about the political stuff. And, you know, like, I'm on social media every day and people are wanting to come after me for X or Y. And it's like, guys, like, I'm like, if we can just get down to the actual issues that we're talking about, we agree on so much of it. And we probably agree on why it's happening. But there's powers that be that want us to be divided. But, you know, I love talking about the farmstead and we call it the home place. That's what it's always called, right? Like, and so that's why actually we just call it. But, you know, great grandpa started that. You know, his father-in-law was in the Civil War in Iowa. It's actually, you know, Governor Kirkwood got a message from the president saying he needed to put together 750 troops in 2 weeks' time. He was literally on his plow when he got the message. And he said, 750 troops in 2 weeks' time, how can that be done? And 2 weeks later, 10,000 Iowans signed up to join this battle. And I tell people this when I'm talking about education. More Iowans fought in the Civil War than any other state per capita. Yeah. I think it was like 50% of the military-age men went to fight, something like that. And that goes back to why we came to Iowa in the first place. I mean, we had religious liberty in Europe. Most of our ancestors came here between 1840 and 1860, somewhere in there. And what they're running from was feudalism. They could not own ground. They couldn't own the ground under their feet. And which meant they were in this perpetual cycle of servitude, which, by the way, like, there's echoes of the past coming here right now. Mm-hmm. And so they wanted to come here for that reason. They actually tried a revolution in 1848. They were defeated across Europe. Many of them got exiled. Many of them, the people that led this revolution in Germany, were exiled and they went to Davenport and Dubuque. We have amazing stories of our history. My great-great-great-grandfather was one of the 2nd Cavalry, and that was called the Hawkeyes on Horseback. And that was, John Wayne made a movie about the Pony Soldiers. And that was actually about the 2nd Cavalry Division that went into these marshes and swamps, were in Gearson's raid, the Battle of Nashville. They did some unbelievable things. In 1900, great-great-grandpa started our farm, and they were carpenters when they first came here, and they earned enough money to buy 160 acres, largely unimproved at the time. And, you know, that was the Iowa story. When I'm at events, I say, guys, I could go through this room, and I don't have to go back more than 1 or 2 generations. We have a shared story of what it means to be an Iowan. And that's actually what's driving me in this whole thing. Like, that's like what could give me goosebumps in this whole discussion, is just thinking about these people that came before us to build something for us that would never meet us. And then my question is, are we stewarding it properly? Are we defending it properly? Mm-hmm. You know, some of my favorite stories out on the farm, you know, for my grandpa's 2 brothers were like the last generation to live on the farm. Dad was born out in Benton County. But then they got off. But, you know, the fun story there is, you know, that was when aviation was starting to boom in the 1930s and 40s. And my grandpa and his brother, grandpa was selling seeds for funks, and great-grandpa was a dealer for funks back then. And he saved enough money, saved $700, and he bought a 1942 Taylorcraft airplane. And the story there, by the way, is, you know, it was supposed to be $750. And the guy pulled up in our driveway to make the deal. And my great-grandma's on the front porch, and she was screaming at the top of her lungs, "We lived through the Depression. You are not spending $750 in an airplane." And the guy dropped it by $50. And so great-grandpa mowed a runway in the bean field, and grandpa and his brother learned to fly. And my grandpa was a career pilot. Both my grandpas were, but and his brother was, you know, flew off aircraft carriers in the Pacific in the 1940s.
Wow.
I mean, if I could write a book about Iowa, I'd go to like these century farms. Yep. And I just be like, tell me the story, because there's so many.
Yeah, there are.
There's and you know, but that was, I think, you know, the path was that, you know, great grandpa's on the farm, grandpa farmed until he got old enough to get off the farm, and then they went off and did these other things. And I think that was like the path that people thought you're supposed to take. And what that led to was our farm being sold because there was nobody left to do it.
Yeah.
And that's sort of what I'm coming full circle here to say, we're bringing this back, and today on our farm, it's not big. I mean, it's much bigger than the original. It's just about 700 acres, but we've put that together contiguously. And I'm doing exactly what you said. Like, we're trying to find new ways to bring in money on the farm, and also just trying to like build an example of how can we help farmers make more money?
Yeah.
Because when you have a little bit of margin to work with, you're willing to experiment. But most farmers don't have margin to work with right now. I mean, they have off-farm income jobs. You can't support 2 generations on the farm like you used to be able to. Or it's getting much more difficult if you don't have 10,000 plus acres that you're farming. And so we're right now, we farm organic corn, soybeans, oats, and alfalfa. And I'm not here to tell anybody how to farm. I never have been. My hope is just find ways that we can make more money. But, we're on a good rotation. We're transitioning more over to grass for beef to try rotational grazing, intense rotational grazing of beef. We're doing cover crops and things like that, which, I think there's pluses and minuses of that. But we're trying our best to see how can we just stay out from under the thumb of these input companies.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of farmers are trying to figure that out too.
Yeah. So if you put your political hat back on, as governor of, a very dominant agricultural state, the comments, there's a lot of people that go to social media just for the comments, and our stuff is no different. And every time that we talk about the markets and what's going on, people throw out that, it's kind of like it's our own fault because we grow corn and soybeans.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if you look at the commodity market, and we had a kid on here the last episode that's out. He actually raises a little tobacco down in Tennessee, but they also row crop. And rice, market's terrible. Cotton's terrible.
Yeah.
Wheat's pretty good. It's moved up, but the reason it's moved up is because we got a drought. And the whole reason that the base of people growing corn and soy is because they have both been the best option of a bunch of poor options. And so we've grown this machine where input costs go up and we pay more every year. And, Corteva just split up. And so they went together because the farmer was going to be the winner in that, because you were going to be able to get your chemical in your seed, and there was going to be all this innovation, and it was going to save you money.
Yeah.
And that didn't exactly happen, and it wasn't good for them either. So now then they've spun it off again. The chemical's going separate and the seed is going different. So now you have 2 groups of people that need to provide for, who the biggest shareholder of Corteva was. The 3 biggest shareholders, State Street, BlackRock, and Vanguard, own 80% of it. Okay, if you're a publicly traded,
that's not uncommon.
No, that's everybody on the S&P.
It's to the point now where when I see a new business going up somewhere, I just don't even ask anymore. I just I just at an event today. I was like, look, what's the one new store that's going in every rural community?
Dollar General.
Who's the largest shareholder? BlackRock.
Yeah.
We can go into that, but keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so my point of that is, corporate profits, what they need as a corporate profit is a lot different than what the American farmer would ever dream of having as a profit. And we can, people that say, well, why do you keep doing this? Well, the reason we keep doing it is because we really have lack of options.
Yeah.
And I don't know when this started, but your farm would have been the same as our farm. Sawyer's the 6th generation here. When we started farming, it was a diversified farm. And a lot of people don't, we throw that word around, but basically, we had cattle, we raised some hogs, we grow some small grains, we grew corn, we grew soybeans, and none of them all made money at the same time, but every year something made money and they all helped you get through. But the other result of that was you were a lot less dependent on your input costs because there was a relationship between all of those things you were doing. we've lost that. We specialize. We haven't raised any cattle here in 100 years. And our hog business, we used to farrow, now then we custom finish. And I'm thankful that we have it, because if we didn't have it, we would never make it on 400 acres row cropping. But our options are limited. All that to say, what do you feel like are some things that the state of Iowa can do on the political side to help with that, to make these farms viable? Is there anything we can do?
Yeah, well, yes, there is. And I always go back to what levers can the government pull, because oftentimes people look to the government for answers when they create more problems. I think we all recognize that, and that's not even a political statement. It's just that, like, maybe they're trying to help, but it's going toward the wrong direction. Like, for instance, most farm programs right now go towards the big guys.
Yep.
They benefit in a tremendous way. The people that are really needing help are the ones trying to make it on the smaller side and trying to find more ways to diversify, like you're talking about. On the state side, but I think, just backing up about corn and soybeans for a second, the picture that you painted, that you're describing, is one that makes it easier and easier to extort somebody with. If you've set everything you do up to grow two things, and all your machinery that you now have giant notes on is set up that way, your operating loan with your bank is set up that way. Meaning you haven't been doing cattle, so they're not going to finance you to do cattle, or they're just going to start out really small. The diversification of the farms that you're talking about was a very good thing. And moving towards this, I tell people this often about what's going on with corn and soybeans right now. And I think you've even talked about it a little bit. Only a couple people have I heard talk about this. But in the next 25 years, Brazil is going to be bringing on about 24 million acres of new ground with 2 growing seasons. By the way, our ethanol industry is subsidizing and helping to create that. When you talk about businesses, when you're talking about a production business, there are 2 ways to get higher profit in a production business. You charge your customer more, or you get your inputs for less. You can see what's happening here. I mean, we are approaching a cliff when it comes to this. And so you take that and you realize, okay, these commodity prices, you might have a temporary bump, which, by the way, I say this like my entire life, every politician has been saying we have to support farmers, and nothing's getting better. You get a temporary bump at the cattle market, which we'll probably import more to take care of that. But then you look at what's happening there, and then you look at things like crop insurance that are just targeted at basically 5 commodities. The deck is stacked towards this direction. And what we actually need is to diversify and have off-ramps for farmers to try new things, especially younger farmers. That's why I'm advocating for, well, number one, if you want to talk about what the governor can do, we have to bring antitrust suits. We have to. There is no competition in these markets anymore. The Iowa corn growers even, you have their sign right there. They wrote the letter to the USDA about what's happening in the nitrogen markets. I mean, John Latham, just 2 weeks ago, filed antitrust suit, Latham Seeds, against Bayer. And we've been subsidizing Bayer. Tens of millions of dollars we've been giving them. I think when I look at this as governor, it just comes back to me about this idea of putting Iowa first. And I mean, that, people say, well, isn't that what's already happening? It's not. When we're giving Syngenta $7.5 million refundable tax credits, when John Deere has $100 million in 20 years and sitting on maybe $40 million we still owe them. Meanwhile, they've been in lawsuits with Iowa companies trying to stop them from what they're doing. We're subsidizing that. We have to get smart over where we are using our dollars. And what I'd like to aim them towards is off-ramps for farmers to try new types of farming. If they want to try regenerative farming, that's great because we can get less nitrogen that's needed. If they want to try building cattle herds, I'd much rather support something like that. You guys see this, you have the guests on. There are people out there that have like glimmers of hope in this agriculture market, that if we took that and said, how do we help more people do this? But one of the bigger things that we could do, and this is just, I believe, smart business for Iowa, is that 80% of the food served in Iowa's public schools should be grown in Iowa. There's no reason it's not. And when you dig into the reasons that it's not, I was talking to a farmer in Denison the other day. He heard me say this. He said, I've been trying to do this. I have to sell my beef. He grows beef out near Denison. I have to sell it at market price, where all the beef that they get into the public schools is donated by the USDA, and the USDA buys it market price. But guess who they buy it all from?
The
big guys. That's it. And he said, for me to be able to get on that list, it might be $1 million. I have to be able to deliver 42,000 pounds of beef at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something the federal government, I think Bobby Kennedy, Brooke Rollins, I'm going to continue to bring these things up. If we can change that, we can open up a giant market for smaller producers to be able to provide our schools with healthy food. I don't have all the answers, but directionally, where we need to go is supporting smaller farmers with diversified operations that can support their local community. That's my belief. Now, we'll still have tens of millions of acres in traditional production. This is not something that's going to say, oh, we need to, I fully understand it. Not everybody's going to grow lettuce. I get it.
Right.
But directionally, we're moving the wrong way. And we have to start saying, how do we support more young people to get onto farms and to be able to carry on what their parents and grandparents did?
Mm-hmm.
And even it's incremental to start with. But any farm program in the state of Iowa has to be aimed at the smaller producer.
Yeah. We got to have some balance there. And that's the thing. Like, the whole argument of localized food system, like, I think everybody likes that idea. Farmers like that idea. The consumer likes that idea. It's a great idea because we want healthier food. We want healthier meat. We want to know where our food comes from. We want to trust the farmer. We want to be in contact with our farmer. But actually making it happen and actually executing it is a whole nother issue because you have big lobbying groups with the commodities, and the input conglomerates. You have the big four. You have to have big agriculture to feed all the people we're feeding, but a lot of that, like you said, a lot of that corn's going to ethanol, right? But how do you break it up? I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I love that idea of localized food system. I can support that, but how do you actually make it happen?
I think first you have to decriminalize it. Like the stuff that my great grandpa did by growing hogs in the barn that I have, slaughtering them and bringing them to market is illegal now.
Yes.
I was talking to a farmer out by Atkins, and he came up to me at an event, and his eyes were wide. He goes, "There is so much opportunity in agriculture right now." I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And he's taken full advantage of the raw milk dairy bill, and he has a 10 cow herd, not big, and he supports him and his wife, and he has a kid that works on the farm too, a grown son. And he was telling me about how they've been able to develop this market around them. And he's outside of Cedar Rapids. And I said, would you like to see that expanded? And he's like, no. I said, what do you mean? He said, the moment it's opened up, one big guy will come in and take the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think that's where we have to get back to this idea of states' rights in the 10th Amendment. I'm often arguing with people about some of my proposals, and they're like, oh, this is socialist or that. It's like, no, you're thinking of on the federal side. I'm not talking about these are states' issues. And the Constitution of the United States says we get to determine how we live as a people. And since the beginning of our country, the founders have put in place policies in their own states to promote these types of things. They're there to defend the citizens of their state. But, even if looking at this and saying that we're going to decriminalize the growing of local meat and being able to sell it to somewhere that doesn't go through a USDA approved facility, like this, if we sell within the borders of Iowa, we get to set the regulation on what the approval looks like for that. And there should be a much more streamlined approval process because right now, what I've been told is about $1 million to get a facility that would be approved on the USDA side.
Mm-hmm. If you can get somebody to inspect it.
Yeah, and get somebody to be on.
Something near and dear to our heart because we've done it. We've done this when you've done this when you were marketing meat. The difference between the state of Iowa and the USDA as far as their inspection, it's the same.
Yeah, like
it's the same.
State inspected facilities go through the same inspection process as USDA in the state of Iowa.
In fact,
and that's why they came out with the CIS program, because it's basically a state facility that sometimes does USDA processing, but isn't a full-fledged USDA processing facility. And it's like,
it doesn't have to be though.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to follow those same guidelines and regulations. And it's like, people, this is an easy one for people to try to poke holes in, but we have more technology at play to be able to know who is a good producer of food than we ever had. And this is the same thing people say, why would you ever stay in nobody would ever stay in a stranger's house. Well, now Airbnb is beating out most hotel systems. Yep. Nobody would get in a car with a stranger to drive around. Now, taxis are basically gone. We have ways to be able to ensure quality. And also, by the way, I say this, you send your meat off to one of these big four, prove to me that you're getting your meat back. Like, actually prove it to me. Where if you have something local, a local facility that you know that what you've grown is being, coming right back to you, like you would with somebody's doing it if you've just killed a deer or something like that. You have much more local feel to it. Like, this consolidation creates bigger risks in the food in the food economy. Like, if something goes wrong locally, it's limited.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to fight. This is why, Chipotle had their, what is it, E. coli outbreak on lettuce, something like that. It was like in 15 different states. And that's what happens because we actually don't know where all of this is going. Food sovereignty is very important to our communities, and it can be a vibrant, economic driver for local communities. It's not going to solve and replace all farming. That's not the idea. But if we decriminalize things like that, we give people a chance to get into more industries like the raw milk dairy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question I had was, do you think there's ever a moment in time where the localized food system could be the dominant, could come back and be the dominant system of American agriculture? Or do you just feel like we're too far gone and like the way that we are set up now is always going to be the dominant way we play?
I mean, I'm an optimist on this. I mean it because it's like my campaign. My campaign's being run. I have 4 key issues: keep Iowa's kids in Iowa, save the family farm, make our public education number one in the nation again, and stop the cancer crisis. Those are populist issues.
Mm-hmm.
What you're talking about, the people just want it.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of people that would rather know where their food comes from and understand that, especially if it's still convenient for them to get, is a lot. Now, the barriers to entry have been put in place, I believe, for protectionist purposes.
Mm.
It's just to protect the big guys. The more I dig into any of these things, the more I do. I'll start with just asking ChatGPT a question. I'm like, this can't be right. And I'm like, well, it is right. But the more I dig into these things, the worse I realize it is. Whether it's agencies being captured in DC or even associations and groups that just aren't thinking outside the box, and they're watching this economy fall and they're trying to do the same thing. That's why I was happy when Iowa Corn wrote that letter. I was like, thank you. Like, we have to start fighting these people.
Yep.
So to answer your question, no, I do believe that we're especially in Iowa can lead on this. There's a tremendous amount of people that are on the sidelines wanting to start small scale farmsteads.
Mm-hmm.
Tremendous. Hard to afford land. There's ways we can help incentivize that, whether it's with financing or otherwise. It's illegal to do some of the things they'd like to do. There's a lot of people that would like to do this. My question as governors, how do I put in place policies to support them to be able to do it?
Yeah.
Because the people want it. I really, truly believe the people want it.
Mm-hmm. Consumer definitely wants to know. Yeah.
They want it. And so when you have when you have something that's that divided, where it's like the consumer wants this very badly, but there's something in the way, then it comes down to who's going to take the arrows to fight industry. And that's what, Donald Trump did. He took every arrow you could possibly imagine. And people are just waiting for somebody to lead. Then you get people that come out of the woodwork, like Marco Rubio, who's like, where'd this guy come from? He's the memes about him are hilarious, by the way.
Yeah.
But in the state side, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm not asking these guys for money. I don't want their support. I mean, I don't not want that. I want them to be on the same wagon with us, saying something's wrong. We have to fix it. And this is about the heritage and culture of our state.
Yeah.
If you really care, join in.
Yeah. I was going to say one thing, and we won't go much longer on this one, but I owned a meat business, and I shut it down at the end of last year just because I had so many things going. But, something about the localized food system, I think people want it, but then there's also a certain amount of people that would come up to me and they'd go, so love the meat business. You're cheaper than the grocery store, right? And I would be like, nope. And I'd have to go down this whole spiel of why I'm not going to be as cheap as the grocery store.
Yeah.
And it's all about the efficiencies of these packing plants. They can sell all the organs. They can sell all the offal to all these different places across the world. And they can price their meat at a price point that is the cheapest it could possibly be because they make money on the rest of the carcass.
Yeah. Well,
I don't do that. I have to take it to a local processing facility where they're hand cutting everything with labor. And, they have to take that offal and get rid of it. They don't have a market for it. And I'm literally all I'm doing is selling the meat. So therefore, I am never going to be able to price my beef, my pork, my chicken to where you're getting it at the grocery store. And that's something that I think the consumer wants this, right? I think everybody wants this, but they also have to be willing to pay for it as well, because you're just not going to be as cheap as the grocery store. You're just not going to.
Well, yeah, remember that there's 3 ways. It can be fast, cheap, or good, or something like that. You could pick 2.
Yep.
And that, I think that's, look, I have empathy for people. Prices on everything are rising. And we've talked about some of the reasons why that is. I mean, there's 2 main reasons. We have a crazy amount of inflation, and a lot of this is a hangover from the COVID era. That money's still lingering out there, and we have a fiat currency, but I won't go into that.
Yes.
and then but at the same time, consolidation in industry drives prices up, because what they say is going to happen is we're going to create efficiencies and we're going to lower prices. They never pass it on to the consumer.
No.
Tell me the last time your grocery prices went down now that you're checking yourself out at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just does. They will not pass these savings on to the consumer. And so, there's economies of scale that of course make something cheaper. But, I look at this and I'm saying, but what's the quality of what you're getting? It's not near what it would be if you understand your farmer. They know you, they care about you. They want your kids to be healthy. But part of this too is as you scale in something like this on a local food system standpoint, you can bring costs down. There can be a market for all the stuff you talked about if there's enough that come together to create the market for it.
Yeah.
And, you look at what the guy in Atkins talked about, the raw milk dairy, something like that. If there's a lot of opportunity around the state, it will create a lot of these. It just will. And it's incumbent upon us to not have our legislators take that away. And I wouldn't, but the same thing would go here. If we can open up smaller production, like smaller processing, and it opens up throughout the state, that's when you have cooperatives that actually form to defend and promote the industry. And that's how you start taking, the big question is, how do you make a change? It's how do you eat an elephant? I mean, if you would have went back 30 years and said, what we're going to do is we're going to grow all this corn and beans and we're going to create, billions of gallons of gasoline with ethanol. It was you're crazy.
Yep.
What? Well, no, but then there's people that were dead set on doing it. They took one step after another to promote their industry. And now what we're talking about is, great. We're going to do the same thing for us. And then we're going to bring it back to where we do have some of these smaller farmsteads. We are growing more local food. And it's not the detriment of these guys. Look, I think there's problems with ethanol. We talked about already, but you can have both, and we should. Right now we have one.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with you on that at all. I mean, we say it on here all the time. It's the realities of agriculture we find ourselves in is it's get big or die.
Yep.
Or create your own market. I mean, that's it.
Yep.
That's where you find ourselves. So, I mean, we've said we have no desire to farm 10,000 acres. We're just not going to play that game.
Me neither.
But we're open to exploring all and every way that there is out there to bring value back to our operation. That doesn't mean buy 5,000, 10,000 acres, but also we're not opposed to either side, I guess. If it makes sense, it's good for our land, it's going to pass on to the next generation, and it makes money, we're open to it. And I think there's a lot more open-minded farmers in the world we find ourselves in of ag today than there ever has been, because we're getting sick of not having any options.
Yeah, they just want options.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
When you just mentioned my campaign points, this is exactly what I say. Look, this is not, as I said, everybody needs to farm like me. There's people out there that would know way more about this stuff than I do. I share crop with a good friend of mine, Ryan Wallace. He's a great farmer. And he's helped me get back into this. Because I grew up, my dad was involved in agriculture when I was growing up. He was a crop consultant. He was a district conservationist as well. Our family's been involved in agriculture for 130 years. But I didn't grow up doing the things that you all did.
Yeah.
I've got back into it. And so there's I'm kind of a case study. But part of what I want to do with Ryan, he has 6 kids now, amazing family, and all he wants to do is farm.
Mm-hmm.
And so as we bought land, I've, share crop to the point where it's hey, what can I do to help him stay on the farm? So that's what he gets to do. And we're doing cattle and there's chickens and, we have a good synergy here. But, when I look at what we're actually doing though, and granted, I'm not I haven't been doing this for 30 years. When I look at our organic soybeans that we grew this last year, we did 65 bushels an acre and we sold for $22.50 a bushel.
Yep. Yeah,
that's not bad.
That ain't bad at all.
That ain't bad. And so, look, I'm not telling you need to farm like me, but hey, there are ways to make more money. And by the way, the NRCS now has a program that pays for your transition to organic.
Yeah.
I think our contract is something like $300 an acre for 3 years.
And I think I actually talked to an organic row crop guy that came to the barn a couple of days ago, and he's been doing it for 20 years. And he said that I think 70% of organic soybeans are imported into this country, something along those lines.
Yep.
And he's like, I got people calling me all the time.
Yep.
They'll pay the bid and then they'll bring the semi to come get the grain.
This is what I tell them. It's like we can elect pickup, or we can, we drop a lot off, and Cherokee has a crusher, and then Des Moines International at the rail yard, we sell to Sunrise, but we can always elect for that too. There is a big demand for it. But I also think there's been this narrative that's been pushed, and I think big agriculture has been pushing it, where it's like, go organic, go bankrupt.
Yep.
And now granted, I understand some of that, because when a farm's not doing good business in the first place, and then things are getting really tough and they say, oh, wow, $22 a bushel, we're going to do that. But then there's a 3-year transition period. Mm-hmm. And like I said, now there's a program to help with that. But before, I mean, you're having your shirt's being taken.
Yeah. I think there's probably a fair amount of guys out there that tried the transition. They were going the way they were going. Their operation was set up for this. They heard that sexy number and were like, we're going to do this. And probably before that program rolled out and, had a bad taste in their mouth, didn't go the right way. Because I put a video out on TikTok the other day talking about me meeting that guy. Yeah. And he threw out the raw, real numbers of what he's getting for corn, what he's getting for soybeans. And there was mixed opinions in there. There were some guys that were like, oh, yeah, organic's the best. It's been working really well for me. And then there was a lot of guys that were like, oh, yeah, but tell us what the real yield was. Oh, yeah, well, it's going to take 3 years. And oh yeah, try that out. Let me know how it goes.
Yep.
And it's
if you're gonna be doing it for 30 years, 3 years is not much.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I like, our organic corn, I think we're 180, but we're like, I was just looking at my sheet on selling. I think the highest bid we got was $10 a bushel.
Yep.
Now look, I'm not saying it's the answer for everything, but it's something that we've been doing because my goal is to figure out how do we make this thing sustainable?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not farming 10,000. You're not. You've got to make every acre pay.
You have to.
And with that kind of return, you could probably go in there and pattern tile that whole thing. I bet you've gotten a lot of free advice on tiling since your podcast show. I've been sitting over here sharpening the knives.
Yeah, here we go.
Jump on that. So what has been have you had anybody offering free advice on tiling since you gotten out there?
I would say, well, first, I talk about it this way, just saying like, I understand why we do it.
Yep.
I totally get it. It's one of the, in terms of yield increase and farmability, it's one of the best technologies we've had.
Yeah.
It's probably better than the traits that have come out. Cause sometimes you don't even know what's happening there really. And, but my point has largely been that we have to solve some of these problems of runoff. And, I think that we're talking about populist issues that are underlying. I can't go anywhere without people bringing up cancer rates, water quality issues. It's to the point now where, look, this last week, 2 of the most prominent Republican politicians in the state brought it up themselves.
Yep.
You can't ignore it anymore. And so, I've talked about these, but I always try to talk about solutions. Look, I get how pattern tiling works. I understand it. I'm not an expert on everything, but I get the physics of it. And I have tiling on my own farm. I've taken some of it out. Some of the stuff we're trying to do something different with native prairie out there. For instance, I'm trying to see what's the rate of gain on native forages compared to other things. We're trying to do some experiments there. But my point on some of that has been look, in urban centers, we use far more product per square foot than we do in rural settings. But that is going to be equalized between Lincoln, Nebraska, and Des Moines, Iowa. Suburbs are largely going to be using the same thing. True Green has the same application in both places. But we are an outlier. I tell people, high nitrate load in water is one of the top causes of colorectal cancer, which is one of the fastest killing cancers there is right now. and we all drink the water. Mm-hmm. So my point has just been, hey, we do have a water quality issue. And there are ways to solve this. I mean, even using saturated buffers so we're not daylighting tile directly into streams. Bear Creek did that experiment, removed 100% of the nitrate load because plants want the nitrogen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so, heck, you're building good pheasant habitat while you're also making sure the water quality is good. You know, I've never called for, hey, we need to rip out all the tiling. That's not what I'm calling for. Say, I get why we use it and I get why we need it.
Yeah.
But there's ways we can likely do it better to make sure we're protecting the resources we have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of comments on that. A lot.
I just wanted to pile on. I like to pile on.
Yeah.
Well, and on that, kind of on that though, one thing that I've heard, and I need to look into this more is, and I did not realize this, but you know, you take like us, we've been no-tilling now for
over a decade. I mean,
probably 10 years, I suppose.
Maybe plus.
Really, it's been that long since you cut you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Ever since you kind of took over the operation.
Yeah.
Grandpa
I mean,
got
it's got to be
older.
right around there. I guess that's part of getting old is if I went back and actually looked, I could say, but it's pretty close to a decade. And an issue that somebody brought to me is that some people believe that part of the problem we have with nitrates running off is the fact that back when everybody plowed, you know, when I was a kid, if I can remember going to church and riding with my dad, and if somebody plowed and they didn't get all the stalks turned under, oh, they were a piss poor farmer. I mean, oh my gosh, look at that guy. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, it had to be black. But one of the advantages of doing that is there's an awful lot of nutrients in that trash that we leave on the field that we used to bury.
Yeah.
And so then when you do get runoff from that runoff is actually higher in nutrient in there than when we were plowing because you're not burying that anymore.
Yeah, yeah.
And so if you don't have a buffer, if you have no buffer at all, that's going right in.
Right in, yeah.
And it's not, that isn't even coming from the tile, it's coming from actual runoff. Yeah. But the other thing is, the comment was made that a lot of these buffer strips, they actually aren't big enough because they're not sized for the nutrient load that's coming off the fields if you do get that rain with that much residue. So it's kind of the idea that
everybody wants you to no-till, and then there might be more nutrients coming off the no-till ground because you're not.
You might actually be putting more nutrients off of your ground by doing a good thing than what we used to do when we plowed, which is why, you know, like this farm used to be flat as a table and now it rolls off because we plowed for two generations or 3 generations.
I don't know. Probably need to look into that more, but doesn't. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think just from like a or like physics standpoint, it's like you could see how that would get trapped in there more easily if you are doing that. You know.
Yeah. But I mean, so what do we do? I feel there's a lot of there's all these factions, right? There's a whole faction out there that farm is bad and farmers are bad, and we're, you know, and then you have a group of total. Whatever you want to say, honesty, there's a group of farmers out there that absolutely 100% believe that this has nothing to do with us and we're not doing anything to it. And then there's, you know, a whole group of
then
people
there's the middle.
There's the middle. So what can we do? What can we do to like...
And I'll add to this as a young person. I mean, and I think every person in Iowa that's a young person, it is a little scary when the statistic comes out about the cancer rate, because it's like, we're going to raise family here. I'm going to raise a family here. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to live here. And I'm kind of, on this issue, I'm in the middle. If we need to take responsibility and figure out different practice, let's do it, because I don't want to be drinking water that's going to give me a higher chance of getting cancer or my family. And I think that's a pretty reasonable thing to say. So yeah, what have you been hearing? What do we do about this water issue? I mean,
well, first off, I think what you're saying is right. We should just own it.
Yeah.
And we should look right now we have the governor's office, we have both the state house and state senate, we have the secretary of agriculture. Let's own it and fix it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just do it. And And meaning like we have a group of people who are on the side of the farmer. I don't want the left getting in here, the people that are not on the side of the farmer and doing it on our backs.
Yeah.
Like right now is the time to work to solve these. But I will say, just from like the standpoint of what's happening, we understand like, how this is getting into the water supply. We get this. And even on, no-till, it does make sense because it has a greater chance for runoff. Your buffer strips, you're right. They probably need to be pretty wide, 50 to 80 feet, something like that, maybe more. I'm not sure. I haven't done the math on that. But also there's other practices that we can be doing. And this goes back to me to saying like, no farmer wants to lose 30 to 50% of their nitrogen into the stream as well. Nobody does. It's a complete waste.
Yeah.
And to think they do is crazy. And so what I've said is like, look, if you look at knifing or deep banding nitrogen, that will help with some of what you're talking about here of just applying it lower into the soil where it's more bioavailable to the root of the plant anyways. And nitrogen is water soluble. And so if it's on the surface, if you're top dressing it and you get a heavy rain, you're going to lose a lot. And okay, let's just talk about it from a financial standpoint. That's not good.
No, especially right now.
Not right now. It's exactly right. And this, I always says, no farmer wants to spend more money on inputs. Who would? And so let's just take it from that standpoint.
And on the manure side, that's like gold for us. We use the hog manure that with the pigs. It's like, we're not over applying that manure anywhere where we don't think we're not over applying.
We're trying to stretch it as far as we can because we want to cover as many acres as we can.
Exactly right. And so I had a farmer, a friend of mine I went to high school with. He called me the other day. He farms a couple thousand acres in Western Iowa. And he said, if you just gave a refundable tax credit for doing this other type of application, like knifing it in, more people would do it. It'd cover the cost and we'd have to use way less. So I think just number one, understanding there is an issue and we can solve it. But to your point, I'm just telling you, one of the things I hear the most, I was at a town hall in Grimes, and I always say that, I'll be the last person to leave. You want to wait to talk to me, which my kids have said, why do they want to talk to you so long, Dad? I'm like, I don't know either. But if you want to wait to talk to me, I'll say to talk to you.
Yeah.
And I had probably 20 groups of people that were waiting to talk to me. All but one was about cancer.
Yep.
All of them. They had a story for me about somebody. There's things that bring tears to your eyes. 9-year-old dying from cancer, not genetic, like that got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma or whatever it might be. And we're an outlier. Look, if you live, Palo Alto County has the highest rate of cancer in Iowa. If you move to Nevada, any given year, just by making that move, your chance of getting cancer drops by 70%.
Yeah, and I heard you talk about this, and tell me if this is right. Is it in the state of Nevada or is it just Los Angeles? Like, it has the highest per capita rate of smoking.
Yes.
But yet its cancer rate is lower than Des Moines, Iowa, or something like that.
It's one of the highest smoking rates and one of the lowest cancer rates.
Yeah. In Nevada. In the country. Nevada is one of the lowest cancer rates in the country. Yeah.
One of the highest smoking rates. Also, they also have alcohol.
A few other
things going on there too. Lifestyle issues are pretty high there. Yeah. But this is why I say, there's been talk about alcohol, contribute this. It's like, guys, we just have to tell the truth and get down to solving the problem. And then let's move on because this is too serious of an issue. Wisconsin has a way higher alcohol binge drinking rate than Iowa. They have way lower cancer rates. Montana has a higher binge drinking rate, way lower cancer rates. The Denver Metro, same thing. We're an outlier here.
Yeah.
And this is what I've had to talk to you about. Whether it comes to farm chemicals or things I'm not calling to ban farm chemicals. That's not what I'm doing. When it comes to tiling, I'm not saying we have to rip out the tiling. I'm saying that we have to address this elephant in the room, which is affecting every Iowa family. I guarantee if I go to an event, there's not one person that cancer hasn't touched their life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's not normal. We are way higher than we should be.
Yeah. And it is so common. It's what's sad is that it has become commonplace. And I'll tell you this story. My dad passed away when he was 99 and he got colorectal cancer when he was 93.
Whoa.
And he went and they did surgery. It was successful and he was fine and all that. But my dad's very, military guy, very, just tell me straight. And he asked the doctor, he's like, well, I just don't understand. How did I get this? And the doctor looked at him, didn't even hesitate. And he said, well, Lawrence, he goes, you live too long. If you live long enough, you're going to get cancer. That's what he said. And that has always just stuck with me, that we live in a society now and in a part of the country where, is that really have to be the reality that people say that? I mean, I don't know. That's kind of
on the flip side of that right now, we are going to funerals of people who are living to be 65.
Yeah, I know.
Whose parents, like yours, lived to be 90.
Right.
And what I look at that, because you guys can probably tell, the politics of all this is like less interesting to me than the culture and the heritage of who we are. When I look at that, I just say, we're losing the wisdom of an entire generation of people. And it's unacceptable. When I told the story about the Civil War and how many people in Iowa stepped up to go do that, we do hard things. That's what we do. And when it comes to this, like, we got to have all the associations, all these groups on board and just say, we're going to solve this. And every stone, no stone's going to be left unturned. And we're going to, incentivize these practices, figure out, gosh, I'm getting me worked up here. I look at this from another standpoint when I talk about putting Iowa first. We have maybe the best medical research university in the country, one of the best.
Yep.
We also have the best agricultural college in the country. Oftentimes you'll go to these universities and they have a global mission. I'm not concerned with global missions. Globalism is a complete lie. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. The only thing that works is you as an individual doing your best in your community and letting your actions ripple outwards. That's what works. So when it comes to our universities, I'm not interested in solving these global problems. We have a cancer crisis in our state. The University of Iowa needs to be focused on how do we solve this. We have an impending farm crisis in our state. Iowa State University needs to be doing the same thing. No matter whose name is on the wall in there, no matter what company's name is on the wall, they need to be saying, how do we help young farmers get onto farms? How do we make more money? You guys ask me these questions about my ideas. Gosh, I'm not the best at all these idea generations. I believe, the right lens to look through. We need to promote our citizens and our people first, ahead of corporate interests, lobbyists, entrenched, special interest groups. And these institutions of our society, our universities especially, need to be focused on making life better for the people who live here. I'm not interested in what's going on in Sudan. I have empathy for these people. I love them, but we have the fastest rate of new cancer ever recorded in the history of human civilization. We got enough work to do here. Same thing when I'm talking about the federal level, sending money overseas. We don't have clean drinking water. And I'll give credit, Governor Reynolds, and the Secretary of Agriculture are talking about these issues just at, kind of at the end of the legislative session, put forward a water quality package. $25 million of that was going to upgrade the nitrate removal facility in Des Moines. And I'm hearing people say, we don't have a water quality problem, when we're putting now $25 million into upgrading it, because it used to be the world's largest, but the guy who met with me at one of my events who works there says we need a bigger one. So success in my mind as governor is that we never have to upgrade that thing again. And that we are just giving people something they can count on. Clean water, healthy food, locally grown, at least having options for it, safe communities, good schools, especially public schools. Like, these are things we used to be able to count on as Iowans. And we can't, but we need to again. And that's what my entire campaign is about.
Yeah, and that might be a good...
I was going to say just one more thing on the health thing. As a young person, I'm in tune with a lot of like optimizing your health. I feel like health has just exploded across the country. Everybody wants to work out. Everybody's listening to Andrew Huberman. Everybody's trying to optimize for longevity, right? And that excites me. And I'm one of those people that I don't know where the world of peptides is going to go. I don't know where the world of stem cells are going to go. I know exercise is important. I know healthy nutrition is important. I know getting my steps in is important. And I want to live a long time and live a good quality life. I don't want to end up in the nursing home and be immobile and have to spend the rest of the back half of my life in a nursing home, right? I don't want to do that.
Yep.
Sawyer's trying to send me to Panama to get me upgraded down there, get some stem cells.
Get those stem cells.
Yeah. I went down to Panama. It was an interesting experience. I'm telling you, there's so much that's going on in this stuff.
Yeah.
You should go get an upgrade. Here's a neat thing is that it's all over the U.S. now.
Yeah.
I actually had a back surgery that went very bad. I ended up losing. I ruptured disc, lost use of my left leg. I was in the hospital for 15 days in the ICU. meningitis. Still, I don't have use of some of the muscle in my left leg, which is why I did the same thing. I was researching, what can I do? How can I rebuild this? I've tried many, many things. I've had some improvement, but you're right. The idea isn't to live longer. The idea is to live healthier longer. Mm-hmm. That's the idea.
Yeah. All that to say, I want to do this optimization stuff, but if I live in a state where I'm going to do all this optimization stuff to live a longer and healthier life and better quality life, and then I'm going to get cancer at 55 and it's going to tell me off. I don't know.
A bad return on your investment.
Yeah, exactly right. And I'm just telling you, you guys read comments, you're interacting with a ton of people. Because I'm in this, I've been doing the same thing. By the way, reading comments, just so everybody knows, not everybody who says they're your friend on Facebook is actually your friend.
That's good to know. That's good. That's good information to get out there.
Yeah. So don't be surprised, guys, when you're I'm just kidding. No, but I'm talking to people about this stuff, and it is one of the top things on the mind of young people. Mm-hmm. So in businesses that I've run, I look at I have key metrics I track. Might be sales or new customers or whatever it might be. Or when I was doing schools, is enrollment and how many schools we're helping to start and all this. The top two things I'm looking at for the state of Iowa are very simple. Are Iowa's kids staying or leaving? And is our cancer rate rising or falling? Yeah. Because it does not matter how low your taxes are. And I'm all in favor of low taxes, low regulation, smart low regulation, especially because you cut all regulation and then the big guys come in and just take advantage of everything. You need to have regulation that's in favor of the people of your state. But I'm all for low taxes, low regulation. But if your people are dying and your kids are leaving, you're not winning.
Right.
And this is something we forgot about. The market fundamentalism that took over after the 1980s, that came out of the Chicago School of Economics that says whatever the market says goes and is best. It's wrong. Our founders never believed it themselves. The free market doesn't tell you how to increase church attendance in your country because it's dropping. There's many things that are cultural issues. How we use the land in Iowa is not just an economic decision. It's a cultural decision. I had this big debate with an AI CEO on X this week because I said we need a complete moratorium on data centers in Iowa. We need no more permits, period. And why? It's because they're being built at breakneck speeds. The environmental concerns are not being addressed. We have a tremendous amount of power that's being used by them, and we're giving them unbelievable tax breaks to $100 billion companies. Mm-hmm. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
And this is an Iowa first thing. Look, let them build them in every other state. And when they can't go anywhere else, come knock on our door and we'll make a deal. But it's going to benefit our people tremendously. You'll pay way more in property taxes. Why wouldn't we want to do some smart negotiation like that? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you something I just found out last week is that, I fought eminent domain on my property. They're trying to build this really big power line across, huge. And I fought it and we ended up getting, it was moved. They found voluntary easements elsewhere. But I just found out this week that was going to power the data center in Cedar Rapids. And mm-hmm. And they're allowing eminent domain for something like this. It's just wrong. And we're not asking for these things.
I think that, I'm surprised that this more hasn't been done on this. I think that on these data centers, the idea, and I think Trump's the one that floated this, is it's simple. They should provide their own power. That should be part of, if they're going to build, they need to figure that into the money they're spending, and they build their own power behind the meter to power that, and the individual retail customer doesn't pay that cost. No, and
right. It seems like they are moving at such a rapid rate on purpose because it's going to be here before anybody realizes the implications of what just happened.
Yes.
Well, and I think that what you're seeing is,
and people are pissed about
these companies, right or wrong, they have in their mind whoever gets to the biggest amount of compute the fastest mm-hmm. is the one that's going to win, is what they think. Now, you're not going to know, but because of that, that's why they're moving so fast. And to your point, I agree 100% on the tax break side, because these tax credits were giving them tremendous amount of jobs created on the build side. Mm-hmm. But on the operation side, once it's built and running, they don't employ very many people. And to give that tax break for that amount of time, to me, it doesn't make sense. To me, you want to incentivize companies that employ a lot of people.
Right. On a per square foot basis, manufacturing employs 100x, 10x, or maybe 100x. The one south of Cedar Rapids I talk about quite often, and it's one example of many that the same thing has been done. It's 1,400 acres of farmland. Will never be farmed again. You have a giant campus that's going in. It looks like a military installation is being put in. You never seen anything built so fast. There's more heavy equipment over there than I've seen on any road construction project ever.
Yep.
And you look at the tax breaks you got, $529 million is what QTS got. Google got their own deal. And QTS, to get that $529 million, has to create 30 long-term jobs. That's what their contract says. But they brag about all the short-term jobs. My big question is where are these people actually coming from to work on this? Because I have these people coming to my town halls all the time to blow the whistle on this stuff. I think it was that one over there too. 40 unpermitted wells were dug because they just did the calculation. Well, how much is the fine? Well, how much time do we have? Okay, we'll just pay the fine. And they just did it. And so you look at $520 million in tax breaks, 30 long-term jobs, $17 million a job. It just doesn't make sense, especially because we're talking about $100 billion multinational companies. I'm not against development. I think data centers have a long way to go to prove their value to a community. Elon's talking about putting them in space, massive compute power in space.
Yeah.
So to your point, it's like, we're moving so fast when these could just become,
obsolete
roller skate rinks.
Yeah.
In the future.
I mean, it is
like
possible.
Yeah, we don't know what the longevity of it is.
And we don't need that many roller skate rinks.
No. So let's get back to that. Is a great, this statistic because I know I've heard you throw it out. Let's talk about your generation leaving the state of Iowa.
Yeah.
What's that? Where does Iowa rank?
On a net out-migration flow, Iowa's fourth highest in the country. So Iowa's kids are leaving faster than 46 other states.
And that's in what age group?
I think it's 25 to 27 or maybe 23 to 27, something like that.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is just measuring the ones.
I'm fighting back.
Yeah, there you go.
Staying, baby.
No wonder you can't find a date.
Yeah. That's no shit on that. Yeah.
We'll find you one, don't worry.
Yeah. Okay.
I think the primary part of that study was people with bachelor's degrees, which by the way are like, in the same study, this was done last summer, and it was quite in depth. In the same study, they also mentioned that they picked an age of an Iowan. If you're an Iowan that I think was 33 years old, and you look at the wages across the country, Iowans that graduate from Iowa High School, Iowa College are amongst the third highest earners in the country. So we are educating amazing people. They're becoming very high earners and they're leaving our state. And we know this because, look, if you graduate from Iowa High School, Iowa College, and you're going to Nashville, Austin, Denver, one of these places, and you're being interviewed and they see you're from Iowa, we know what they say. Like, we love hiring Iowans. Good work ethic, not afraid to stay late. You have good values. My whole case is let's bring them here.
Yeah.
And I think the short-term nature of kind of the economic development ideas in our state has been a hindrance to that. It's kind of like, what press release can we put out to say that, we're making progress, where I'm trying to take a long-term view on this to say that Latham Seeds, Kenzie Manufacturing, these companies who, when the economy gets bad, are going to go into their own pockets to keep their neighbors and friends employed, are the ones we need to be helping. Meanwhile, we're actually helping their competitors who are suing them, and we're subsidizing that with our tax dollars. I think that's crazy. And so the levers we can pull on that are very simple. When you think about Iowans leaving, there's a certain extent of people that just want to adventure. And I empathize with that. I was one of them. I left. I wanted to come back home after I was out of college and started having kids. It's like, man, I miss home. But then there's also a certain extent that maybe go elsewhere for college and would like to come back home, and the opportunity isn't there. I think part of that's because of the short-term thinking that we have. And also, I remember, just going back to our previous discussion briefly, I had a mentor in Des Moines who was a very, very well-known business guy there, really sweet guy, really big in building the entrepreneurial community of Iowa. And when I come in, he'd, talk to me about what Iowa's becoming or what it could become. And during that same time, I hear a lot of people talking about how Iowa's going to be the Silicon Prairie, this tech hub. And I got to the point where I was saying, well, who's actually asking for this? Because from a comparative advantage standpoint, we have great kids and great soil. We should be diving far deeper into that. And what we actually got from that was data centers primarily. There's a couple of really good Iowa homegrown businesses that have come here and stayed here. But it's sort of like jumping on this bandwagon of what's the sexy next thing, instead of saying, how do we build with what we have? But, and the other thing I'd say on this, investing in Iowa's homegrown business is one key part of keeping Iowa's kids here. But I also think if I'm governor, what we're going to do in the Iowa Economic Development Authority is, number one, we'll have a moratorium on the largest population centers in the state from receiving funds. Those city centers can stand on their own. We have to prioritize our rural communities. We have to.
Yeah.
I even went as far to say, look, for every single kid that leaves our state, it's about $4.5 million of lifetime earnings, just from the same study, and about $450,000 in tax revenue lost. I would love to give down payment assistance bonus to kids that would move back home if you've been trained in the trades or you have a remote work job. Yep. And if you'll move to a rural community, we should double that. Even if it was $100,000, and it's not a handout. It's not like, here's a check for you. It has to be done either through, income tax abatements or something like that goes into a savings account that can be used for a down payment or something along those lines. Even if we did $100,000 over 10 years or something, we're still $350,000 in the black. But the same would go to the kids that stay here. We need to find ways to entice and incentivize our kids to be here, because we have what they really want, which is community, tradition, their families. Now it's, do we have the opportunity? So starting an Iowa entrepreneurial fund for young entrepreneurs in Iowa that want to have a crazy idea, and there's mentorship along the way to build something new, especially in ag. You've seen these robots that are coming out to get rid of pesticides and herbicides, things like that. Why wouldn't we be bringing those people here?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I could tell you, that what you just said is, living here, I have seen the impact of what being an entrepreneur in a rural community can have on a community and just the state. And it's always made an impact on me. There's the big, we feed a lot of hogs out here in this county, and the biggest integrators that are family owned have made a huge impact on our community. If they weren't in our community, I don't know where our county would be. And, Pell Windows, another example. Pell Windows is massive. What about, what's the Oski lighting company?
Musco.
Though, to me, I have so much respect for those guys that started those businesses because it's just it's so impactful when you can do that in a rural community, because you are you're in Austin, Texas, there's how many businesses are keeping Austin, Texas going. But when you're a rural community, you stay, or you're a rural business and you stayed and you built something great. I think that's so
a legacy.
Cool. That's a legacy.
Is you become a pillar of the community.
You do.
You're somebody that people depend on.
Yeah.
And also, Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this. He's been somebody I've respected for a very long time. And he talks about the value of, there's a lot of politicians that talk about trades as a buzzword, for instance. The reason trades matter is not so you can put it in a commercial or something like that. It's because you're training people to go deep in their community.
Yeah.
And then you become a plumber. And then you do it. I talk to these kids, and I just love talking to these kids. They'll come up to me in a rural community town hall and say, what's next for you? What's exciting you right now? My favorite question is what are you really excited about right now? And they get caught off guard, but then I'll get into some really awesome stuff. And usually is not even related to what they're working on at the moment. I'm starting this new thing. I'm starting my apprenticeship, or, and you become a plumber in a community like that, like some of these kids want to do. And what I tell them is, be the best.
Yeah.
Be the absolute best. And remember this, the lack of you being the best hurts everything, hurts everyone around you. You need to be the best. Be the guy that's making the videos on Instagram about the beautiful welding beads that are coming out. It's just artistry. Be the best, and then grow. You will grow because of that. And then you'll start to employ people. And then eventually you'll turn around 25 years later and you've got a business that's employing 15 people and you're a pillar of the community. And you're giving back to the local football team. And that's the type of thing we have to incentivize. And by the way, a lot of this tech startup kind of culture has been a lie. Like the idea in life isn't that you build $100 million company and exit and live on a beach.
Yeah.
That's not what you do.
No.
Like it's not.
And a lot of those guys will talk about that. We've talked about
yes.
it. There's so many of those guys that they thought
Chasing the carrot.
They chased that carrot and they sold it. And once they sold it, they were miserable. And they had to go try to start something else.
Purposeless.
Yeah. That's exactly right. You lose purpose. You lose it. And look, there's nothing wrong with going to build a big company. Great. But hang on to it.
Yeah.
Don't sell it. Keep it in the family. When BlackRock comes knocking on your door, tell them to pound sand.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
When some private equity company comes to say no, like because we know what they're going to do with it.
Yeah. I think, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say that to me, I witnessed that. I saw that. And that's something that I want to aspire to try to do here. Right. Yeah. But I think the one thing that does suck about being an entrepreneur in Iowa that makes me a little jealous of Austin, Texas, or, these hubs of entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs doing great things is you just don't have those kind of Austin's a hub for that.
Yeah.
And you don't have that here necessarily. And like you said, if there was a fund or if there was a group of entrepreneurs that wanted to do exactly what we're talking about, man, that'd be awesome. That would make the experience of building in Iowa worth it, way worth it, and help you along the journey because it can get it's a lonely journey,
Oh, for sure.
And so anyway.
That's the idea.
Yeah,
is that this is long-term thinking. It's not short-term political thinking. It's if you were setting out a trajectory for 30 years, what would you do? And that's what I'm trying to bring forward in this political discussion, which is very difficult because remember bumper stickers rule.
Yeah.
But that idea of connecting, because there are a lot of people like you out there, and I bet you've connected with 10x more than you ever did before with just this platform.
Yeah.
And you see, oh, that guy's doing something awesome. You guys are giving them a voice too. I want my office as governor to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to have that community in there that says, we're here to create the companies that are going to compete with these people that have been extorting us.
Yeah.
And we're going to put you out of our state because you're going to realize our people are growing amazing businesses here, and we're going to take care of our own. Mm-hmm. Now, this is not protectionist in the sense of we don't like people from out of state. I mean, Nebraska is one thing, but we don't like people from out of state.
Nice. I like that.
Nice dig.
It's more so just that I want every state to do the same thing.
Yeah.
I want Nebraska to look after their people and their economy and their communities and their rural communities, just like I want Iowa to, and I want to compete with them. I think that's the direction we have to go because the rising tide is going to lift us all. And right now we're literally just stuck in this. And there's been reasons for that. And I believe many of them are on purpose. And my campaign is a repudiation of these things. Look, they're just going to know if they're a big multinational corporation coming into the state of Iowa, they're going to have to make a really good case for, why they should deserve anything from the state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're going to be so busy building our own companies with our own people. And if you want to move, and by the way, that will make more people want to come to Iowa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the right types that you're talking about. It's wow, imagine, I haven't really socialized this idea very much, but there's a lot of food restaurants that are popping up that have really healthy ingredients and all this stuff. What if we were a hub for that?
Yeah, we were a hub of food entrepreneurship. And,
yes.
Yeah.
And it's you could grow, you literally grow whatever you want here, either in the growing season or in greenhouse hoop houses, whatever you want to do, you can do it. And if you had that place where everything you wanted to serve could be grown within a couple miles,
mm-hmm.
and we could have that sort of innovation that they're doing in other places with tech.
Yep. Yeah. And then every CPG brand that, is making a vegan protein bar, they're trying to go to a market, all the CPG products out there that need to rely on agriculture to make their product. I mean, they might collaborate,
Yep.
So,
and they've got, by the way, a lot of those brands, it's not they're looking for high quality ingredients, and they understand that comes with the price.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another thing is how do we incentivize that type of entrepreneurship here where we can, have a great value add in our agriculture and get paid good margins for this. But the last thing I'm going to say about this is that, I talked a little bit about what's happening in our schools and food. And I think that flipping those things on their head to say we will utilize these programs in our favor for our people is a really important part of this process too.
mm-hmm. You gonna ask him the question that you've been wanting to ask him?
Uh-oh.
Is it time to start slinging mud yet? Are we ready to get down in the belly of politics?
Sure, you can go ahead and do that.
Okay. So we would be amiss if we didn't drag you through some of that. So Rob Sand just rolled out his plan to legalize, tax, and regulate recreational marijuana, claiming it'll create 7,000 jobs, help farmers with a new cash crop, and fix the $1.4 billion budget hole. So is that the answer? Every other state around is every other state around us now got legal? Nebraska, Missouri, Michigan. Sawyer just gave up. He's like, I don't want to talk about this. But there's a good slug around here, and is that the answer? You think that's the answer?
I think we can. I personally think we can do way better. Meaning, people ask me this quite often, and I've been very clear, and I've looked into this quite deeply. I've tried to, because as I've talked about, most of my campaign's about culture, and I've lived in states where this has been the reality.
Yep.
It's not what they say it is.
Yep.
And I'll just say this, that I am fully in favor of alternative types of medicine. 100%. We know that there is benefit to a lot of this. Plant-based medicine does have a role to play, especially in upending some of these pharmaceutical monopolies that are entrenched. And we can see even the state of Texas is doing new work with things like ibogaine and stuff like that help with PTSD. So I fully understand the benefits that some of this can have. I get it. And my big question to people that have been pushing this is, what's wrong with the current legislation?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you go to some of these states, in every single corner now, it's a place to buy marijuana. And I would say that what Rob Sand is talking about is not true. And I would argue this with them because, look, even there's a Federal Reserve study that came out about this. It's weighing the impact about this.
Mm-hmm.
And what's very clear is that the economic benefits aren't what they say they are.
Yep.
And the societal issues that have been caused. I mean, I don't have the statistics on the top of my head, but any of your listeners can go research some of these things. It's actually quite high on the negative side. So my position is very simple. I want to make sure people who need this type of thing have access to it.
Yep.
But I also don't want to give another avenue for people to check out.
Yep.
It's the opposite of what I'm working towards.
Yeah.
And this, again, goes back to this idea of market fundamentalism. Well, the market fundamentalism here would say, well, yeah, just legalize everything. And there are people who actually advocate for that. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
I think we get to decide the type of culture we want in our state. And I think what's happening here with my opponent is that this is a stretch to try to pull a group in, which, by the way, again, I understand the benefits that I know people who have PTSD that use medical marijuana, and it has a tremendous impact for the positive. I've also known people, personal friends of mine, who have other issues, who have used it, and it's created a lot of negative consequences, like very negative consequences. With that being said, I want the people who would benefit from this on the medical side. I mean, there's people who on cancer patients, there's PTSD, there's a lot of these things. And it's not just medical marijuana. I mean, Texas is leading in some of these. Rick Perry's becoming a voice for a lot of this stuff. He's as traditional as you could get. And he's pushing for a lot of ibogaine research, which I have friends that have been digging into this and tell me it's quite unbelievable for basically curing it. It's like a curative treatment for PTSD. I want to make sure that we have access to things that will really help our citizens and our people.
Yeah.
Because they are suffering. That being said, when it comes to just legalizing something blanketly, I'm not in favor of that.
Yeah.
I think if there's ways we can improve the current policies we have right now, I'd be all open to it.
Well, I think that there's no better example of an issue that I'll just say this. I think there's a lot of very low information voters and a lot of people that wouldn't otherwise vote that this issue sounds really good to them. They'll vote for it because they like it. And the other thing I'll say is I have no problem with it. This is my position. I guess that maybe this is a libertarian position to a point, but my position on all of this is I don't really care. If you want to get high all day, every day, if you want that, go for it. I just don't want to have to pay for it. And that's where a state like Colorado who has had this long enough now, I will guarantee you there is a lot of people that were involved in the legislature when that got passed that probably have a different opinion of it today.
Yeah.
Because they've had it long enough now that the money, the initial, we're gonna use this for this and this is gonna fill this gap, that's all done. And now you got to live with it. And what they've gotten out of it versus what they gained, what they've lost from it versus what they've gained. I think it's a good case study for the rest of the country. I think.
Well, it's been used as a case study. There's papers written specifically on this. My dad used to say this to me, Zach, just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done.
Right.
And we just have to get back to remember that. I talked about the quote that was written in that article about the Amish, and it said, the big question they ask before they make a change is, what will this change do to my community? And I think that's the big question. What's the long-term change that this will have? Because if we're going to put effort into creating new markets for things, I have other things I'd rather create markets for.
Yeah.
That I think long-term are net additive to our society and community. And again, because I do know this is an issue people care about, I fully understand there are benefits to this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not calling to restrict it in that way. I want people that are suffering to be able to have access to it. But I also have looked at what you're talking about and the benefits that are being listed there. By the way, this has been widely debunked for a long time. This is not something new. Like we've understood. Look at Spencer Pratt's campaign in California. You guys been paying attention to this?
Yes.
Now, granted, I'm not comparing medical marijuana to what's happening in California with super meth and fentanyl. I get that. But there are people out there that also advocate just legalizing all of that. That's where I stand on the issue, is just that, I'm in favor of the current law that we have. Mm-hmm. I want people to have access to it. I'm even in favor to expanding it, because I've had people say, hey, it's difficult to get, or there's not enough places. Okay, well, let's have a discussion within there. But another thing my dad used to tell me is he used to say this to me is what adults do in moderation, children often will do in excess. And I think there is a case to be made there that, we have a role to play to set the values for what we want to create as a culture in our state. That's a large part of my campaign, is that. And so it's a big issue. I think that this is another one. By the way, if I was just going out pushing the buttons, I would have answered that question very differently. Yep. So I hope even if you disagree with me, you can see at least I'm being honest about it.
Yeah. It's not a bunch of fluff. What other issues or topics or things he's running on that you think? I don't know. I guess I should have a specific example. But what are some other things that are polar opposites of how you both see things that you think?
This is a really interesting question, because I think that what's happening with this campaign is, I came out and I announced, here's why I'm running. I want to break up these ag cartels. I want to, make our education better. I want to stop the cancer crisis. And that was in November. And now, as I mentioned, a lot of the narrative has shifted in our state. And somebody said to me the other day, that's largely a result of having this voice heard on Tucker Carlson and Sean Ryan. And I had never thought about it in that regard. And I'm not saying it's all me. I'm just saying people are talking about these issues. But for instance, I've been very clear from the very beginning that when it comes to, right now Bayer is pushing in 22 states, they're pushing in the Farm Bill, the Supreme Court, and through the executive order to get immunity from liability in lawsuit. And I just say, look, a core function of the free market is liability. If your product harms somebody, you should be held liable. And I've talked in depth about this issue with a lot of people, but I just believe that no product deserves immunity from liability. The Vaccine Immunity Act in 1986 has likely caused more health harm for our people than any other policy we've had in modern time.
Yeah, and I want to say one thing about that. I don't think Bayer deserves any cover on that, because it's one thing. I don't know whether people have forgotten this or not, but Bayer didn't invent Roundup.
Yeah.
Monsanto, or was it DuPont and then became Monsanto? I don't remember, but it was Monsanto. And Bayer came and they had a number and they bought the company, and they knew what they were buying. They knew that there was litigation. They knew what they were buying. And they made the decision. They calculated the numbers and they said, okay, this is what we think the exposure is going to cost us. This is what the product pipeline is worth.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, they said, yep, it's worth it. So I don't think they're entitled to any cover on this whatsoever, because if they weren't smart enough to make the decision and say, then maybe they shouldn't have bought it. But they did. And they doubled down on it. And now then it is what it is. And I'll also say that when it comes to, I guess you'd call it tort reform, the United States needs it badly. Agreed. Because the amount of exposure that companies have. I mean, a lot of the decisions that are made at a corporate level are entirely based off of liability.
Yep.
And there should be some protection that way. I do believe it needs to be reformed, but you're never going to get it as long as the lawyer lobby is the second most powerful or the most powerful lobby in Washington, D.C., which goes back to your point of, I don't know whether we can fix anything in Washington, D.C., but yeah, I don't think they deserve any cover on it because they made that decision and they should have to live with it. So,
likely what will happen from that is that if they don't get major cover, which, the MAHA organization 2 weeks ago pulled that pesticide immunity out of the Farm Bill, which was a huge win. I didn't know if it could happen. It did happen. The Supreme Court case is being argued right now. But if it does start to get that they have these shields from liability, or if they don't get a shield, I think what they'll do is end up just spinning it off. They'll make an agreement with the judge, you put this many billions into an account, spin it off, and then whoever buys it will just put a cancer warning on the label.
Yep.
And then then these lawsuits are done.
Yep.
And then that, by the way, that will get depleted down. But even if you don't believe that Roundup is genotoxic and causes cancer, you still don't do something like this.
Yeah.
Because in 10 years, maybe you will believe it and maybe you will be affected by it.
Yep.
And then the recourse that you have is gone, completely gone. I mean, it's estimated that the VAERS, the Vaccine Adverse Effect System, which is the premier vaccine injury database that we have, it's estimated by the government's own internal audits that it captures less than 0.3% of actual injuries from vaccines.
That's crazy.
But also, there's no incentive to get the right data because there's no liability even if you get it. There's like a small amount of people that get some sort of, recourse, and they're fighting a government system.
Yeah.
Instead of going through the courts, which are supposed to adjudicate this. And I totally understand the courts. There's a lot of problems we have with the courts. I get it. But what the answer to the problems in the courts, or the answer to the problem with FIFRA, the Federal Insecticide, Rodenticide, Fungicide Act, or the EPA, is not to take the recourse away from an American citizen. That's not the answer. The answer is go fix the problem. And if you got to put a cancer warning on the label, and then you kind of have this retroactive issue, you have it. Or if you have to sell it off, you have it. But we have to protect the citizens to actually have recourse on that. But also the tort reform is a good point. And now I've studied these cases myself, and there's many cases, a ton of cases that come up that are just completely, they don't have any legs and they're just dismissed. But then you have some of the bigger cases where, as I say, I mean, Bayer has the most powerful attorneys in the world, especially now. They have no shortage of cash. They get to participate in the jury selection process. The jury's hearing at least 100 hours of testimony from both sides. And they're losing on these big cases because we know from their internal documents, from Monsanto's internal documents, what they knew. I mean, just the one email from the EU representative of Monsanto when the EU basically said, we're not going to allow you to sell the agriculture version of Roundup anymore because the surfactant in it is too toxic, the POEAs. And so they had to reformulate it. And by some estimations, it was 20x less toxic. And so they did reform it. In the internal email from the Monsanto representative in Europe to I think it was St. Louis, was something like, why would we continue to make a harmful product when we know how to make a safer one? But they don't change the formulation. Like, there's right and wrong things that you should be doing. And it can't all be a bottom line decision because people are getting sick.
Yeah. So one of the things that you want to do is, if I'm right, is independent third-party test
Oh yeah.
of these chemicals. That to me doesn't sound like it should be like a controversial idea.
Only if you have something to hide.
Yeah. So do you feel like if you've gotten a lot of pushback on that?
No, this is, I think when I come to this idea, a lot of people have asked me to talk about glyphosate and Roundup because for years, I've just been digging into this because I've been so interested. My dad got non-Hodgkin's lymphoma after spending his life in fields. And I just know far too many people that have got it. And we know, glyphosate, what it's being implicated in genotoxicity is directly in the creation of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And there's many reasons. I've read far too many studies on this, way too many, it can be mind-numbing at times. But the two primary things I'm calling for is, number one, no immunity from liability, because we need that lever from the free market to hold companies accountable. And two, like Ron DeSantis is doing in Florida, we need to have independent research on the safety of products. So he's doing it in different areas in food and things like that. But for us, I believe we just deserve to know, because the majority of studies that go into licensing a product with the EPA are done by the industry.
Yes.
Majority. I think it was 90% of the studies on the EU were done by industry. And we just know this. It's common sense. It's a fox guarding the hen house. Like, you can't trust it. Well, this is what science has been so co-opted in this way that, I've argued with there's some people from Bayer on X that I've that have came after me, and then they realize I'm not going to stop coming back at you with real data. And they just overload with snippets of studies where they highlight something. They have a folder of this stuff on their computer that they just try to overload the average person to say, you're crazy. But I've read these studies and I understand where they're coming from and who paid for them.
That's the big thing about studies that people do not think about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's conducting the study and who is paying for the study?
Yes.
That is a huge deal when a study is being done.
And, with Roundup, with glyphosate, we know that the primary toxicity comes from the surfactant in it. Glyphosate has a very hard time entering the bloodstream in the first place. And I'm not calling to ban it. I never have. And that's not my point. My point is that we deserve to have independent, truthful research on this. Every ag industry group should be calling for the same thing. We have a cancer crisis in our state, And the same thing with Parkinson's. Paraquat is directly implicated in Parkinson's. Directly. It's used to create Parkinson's in lab settings. And to be able to spray it, you need a 30-minute to an hour class online that you can do to be able to just go and get this. You some point research the Japanese paraquat poisonings. There's somebody going around putting just a teaspoon of it into bottles in vending machines, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. There's many, many deaths that happened with 48 hours, 56 hours later. It is so toxic. And so my point is, independent research is necessary. The state needs to be doing that. Now, I would actually like to have a third party doing it, because whoever's in charge at the state level, it's politics.
Yep.
And we just need real science. And what does it even mean anymore? Anyways.
Farm bill, you touched on it briefly, but it's going to the Senate. What do you think about the farm bill overall? What are your thoughts on the farm bill?
Because I've been so focused on the state, I have not, state level issues, I've not dug deep into what the actual provisions of the farm bill are. And part of that is, who knows what's going to come out of the Senate?
Yeah, exactly right. It'll be, because then it'll end up having to go back to the House, because there'll have to be a reconciliation bill.
Exactly.
So until it makes it to the House, we really don't know what it's going to be.
And my hope for it is that the programs that I hope that Bobby Kennedy and Brooke Rollins are having an impact here, and programs are starting to be bent towards the small producer. That's my hope. I don't know I'd love to see other things. I'd love to be able to have grazable CRP. I'd love to be able to open that up so we can actually start building soil health and creating a value-added product versus just leaving land alone. Which, by the way, I get it. We're using a ton of land, and there's a case to be made that recharging aquifers, these things are good. But in the same regard, you can benefit land way more if you have a ruminant animal on it, actively building soil health. So my hope in the Farm Bill is that those types of things happen. But again, I think it's difficult. I don't think the people voting on it know what's in it.
Yeah.
Just to be frank with you.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So then I don't even know how many pages it is, but I guarantee it's hundreds, if not thousands of pages. And we know that there's an attempt to stuff as much stuff into these bills as you possibly could that have nothing to do with farming.
Yeah. I haven't seen this lately.
How many people though do you think? How many congressmen and women do you think will get a bill like that? It's not their focus. They don't know shit about agriculture, and then they just are like, how do I need to vote on this one? Do you think they just go to their constituents?
But don't you think what they should be doing? What should they be doing, Sawyer? What do you do with every contract you see?
Putting it into AI and checking it, and
yeah,
looking it over.
How many of them do you think do that? How many of them do you think feed it into Manus?
Not any of them. Because then they're too old to use technology to know how to do it.
Because it's amazing. You can take some ginormous and
bill
feed it in there, and then it'll just sprint you out a nice little summary that says,
"Oh yeah,
pork."
Yeah.
Well, that to answer your question, I would say the vast majority do not read any part of this. They'll have a legislative aide or somebody that might hear about something or might be doing something with AI, but they have largely delegated the duty of being an elected representative away from themselves and onto other people.
Got staff
and now
for that.
Fundraising, meetings with industry, meetings with K Street lobbyists. That's really what it's become. And it's very sad. It's very sad that that's what it's become. And, as I say, I think on the state level, I bet you guys know where your local representative lives here.
Yeah.
I bet you could probably just
I can throw a rock. I can throw a rock at her from here.
Was that Heather?
Heather.
Yeah,
she lives
she was at my event this morning.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean. So that's what elected representative democracy is supposed to be. And even if you knew where your senator or house member lived, he said so many decisions are being made by other people, and especially by lobbyists. Having some sort of blockchain for legislation creation would be quite unbelievable. And understanding the man hours that went in for an actual congressional office to create a bill, which I bet it would just astound us on the low side because it's coming from elsewhere. So my whole vision is go deep in Iowa. People ask, hey, if you win this race, which I am not a presumptuous human being at all. Like, if you win this race, are you going to go for something else? No, I have no interest in running for anything else. If I could be the governor of Iowa for the next 2 decades to turn the ship around, and I don't want to be a career politician, but I think that's one of the things about Iowa that we can do, is have a long-term impact. That's what I want to do. And I think we have a great case to be made that that's worth it.
Let's talk about the schools. You used to open up schools. Let's touch on that a little bit, because I haven't heard a ton on that specific subject when I've listened to stuff. Like, what did that look like? How did you go about doing that? And what was the mission behind doing what you were doing there?
It was my kids, honestly. Well, actually it was me. When I was a kid growing up in school, I didn't fit in. I had too much energy. I'd like to say I was too enterprising, but that might be a compliment to myself that I'm just trying to give myself. I say that because I remember my parents went to a parent-teacher conference once, and which I didn't like those because of what would happen
Sawyer
afterwards.
didn't either.
I wasn't. I'm the same way.
I remember my principal said to my parents, if I was ever on a desert island, I'd want to be with Zach because he'd find a way off. But that was like a problem to be fixed.
Yeah.
And, I was legitimately, what kind of spurred this is I had a bad experience with education in that regard. Whatever it might be, whether it's ADHD or whatever it might be, I just had a bad experience of not fitting into that model. And I think a lot of people are in that same boat. And so I can remember I was living in Montana. I was working for then Congressman Steve Daines, because we just ran a race for him. And I was a state director for a short amount of time. And we had our first son, Hudson, was born. And my uncle Marv called me just to say congratulations. And he said, well, now you need to start thinking about schools. And I just laughed. But I started thinking about it. And I thought, if he's anything like I was, I'm going to find him something different. Because you should spend those most formidable years of your life engaged in things that are going to help you on your next, as we call it, your next great adventure. And so that really opened up my eyes. And so I spent a number of years just thinking about school. And then we started our first school in Kansas. The network of schools we're in is now 300 schools across the country. we actually partnered with 3 primary schools. One is called Acton Academy out of Austin, Texas. And I spent 2 years visiting schools. So I'd be traveling for work and I just find innovative schools and places and I would like go visit them, learn from them because I knew nothing about education at the time. And, I found like, it's like a lot of things. You get into it a little bit and you realize, there's a lot of innovation that could happen here. There are smart people doing things, but also if you bring like a beginner's mindset to something, it could really benefit. And so I went in to learn from these people. Acton Academy is our primary school partner, and they're an unbelievable hands-on Socratic learning by doing school versus memorizing. Like, unbelievable model. Then we partnered with a school called New View, which is on the campus of MIT, middle school, high school, on the campus of MIT, hands-on, like advanced projects they're doing, really cool stuff. But the third partner school we had, this is a really fun one, and we were, as far as I know, their only partner school in the country, was a school called Ad Astra. And that was a school that Elon Musk started for his kids on the campus of SpaceX in Hawthorne.
Yep.
So we actually had a space on that campus for our kids. Now COVID hit, he ended up shutting the school down, and and so it was short-lived. But what I got to do with all that is learn from people who are doing amazing things. And by the way, this is the approach I would bring as governor too. And I mean the sense of like, I don't know all of what like could be done, but I would go out and find the people who are doing it really well. And how do we learn from them? And so started the first school. And so our schools are very, very innovative, but I say they go ages 3 through 18. They're Socratic in nature. So once you're in elementary school, every day starts off with a Socratic discussion. And it's like an in-depth question in your circle with your classmates. And there's a guide leading it. And it could be on any topic. I think one of the topics I talked about was this, but I'll say you kick off every day intentionally, you end every day intentionally. And then the morning is core skills. It's all self-driven. You're using some technology, but you're also reading physical books, writing on paper, things like that. We deliver challenges, and the kids actually take on their own learning starting at age 7. So they'll have a mentor from the high school that is assigned to them that they meet with twice a week actually, in the beginning of the week to set goals for what they want to accomplish. And then if they have any problems, that's who they go to. So part of the idea is that young people are capable of far more than we challenge them with right now. Mm-hmm. And that there's models out there that are doing this well. And so we say, if they can plan it, build it, design it, create it, or lead it on their own, let them until you've worked yourself out of a job. Mm-hmm. It's all about giving them more agency over what they're doing. And so the morning is Socratic launch. Then we go to core skills. We have a lot of outside and free time and like, I guess you call it recess time, but it's unstructured. And the afternoon is hands-on projects, problems, and simulations. So one of those might be, you're talking about the future. We did one years ago about the future of farming. So it's a 4 to 6 week sprint that you're working on a project every afternoon for 4 to 6 weeks. And the end of it, there's a public exhibition where parents, grandparents, community members will come in, and you're at 7, 8 years old presenting on stage about this problem that you were faced with that we gave them, and then how you chose to solve it. And we deliver challenges every day. Basically, it's a packet, and we hand it off to them. And so the younger ones will have partners with older ones. So there's, because sometimes there's, reading challenges, things like that. And they'll work together, and they get new challenges every day. And so that could be like future farming. It was the game that we put them within was that they were located in some desolate part of the country, and they each had different climates in their group. And they had to figure out the nearest grocery store is 4 hours away, and they had to figure out how to feed themselves. So what technology would you bring in? Would it be, greenhouses? Would it be hydroponics? Would you have a good climate like here where you can actually grow most of it and it's more canning and things like that? And then at the end of that session, they'll do an exhibition. Parents all these people come in, they'll present, they'll answer hard questions. They'll take a week break, and they'll come back in, and we have a full new game for them that they're placed within.
Okay.
And so the Socratic launch is like one of them that I've referenced is this. And I gave this one years ago, and it was when this was happening. It starts with this. Imagine this. You're a visionary entrepreneur, dead set on being the first person to land a rocket on Mars. And I did this in elementary. It's really fun. But in order to do that, you have to learn to re-land rockets. You have to develop the technology, which many people say cannot be done. Yeah. Every time you lose a rocket, it's $62 million up in smoke. You launch your first one, it gets off the platform and explodes in the air. The second one goes much higher, tips over, explodes. The third one comes back down, explodes when it's landing. $62 million every time. You're the entrepreneur. You now have a decision to make. Are you going to keep raising money, even though you might, waste your investors' hard-earned dollars? Or are you going to pack it up and give up on your dream? And then we'll leave them with that first question. And then you'll have both sides arguing this. And the job of the guide is not to give an opinion in any way. If the discussion gets too far in one way, we'll add a question in that will draw it back to the middle. And I remember this exact launch I gave. There's an 8-year-old boy. He was actually, I think, graduating this year or next year from the first school we started. And he said, well, is it public information that these things are crashing and blowing up? I was like, and I just go, yes, it's public. It's very public. I said, well, I keep raising money because they know what they're getting into.
Like, perfect.
Smart man.
And so the idea though, is that you're putting them into the shoes of a hero where you have to make a really tough decision. Mm-hmm. And as you get into middle school and high school, they get higher stakes. It might be around gun control. It might be around like really big issues. We don't interject any of that stuff in elementary because I say, like right now, our job is to help them like appreciate the wonders of the world and like love coming to school every day. So real quick about the schools, I'll end with this, but we have different studios. So basically we have lower elementary, upper elementary, middle school, high school. And what we say is that as an entrepreneur, I like to synthesize goals down into like make it really simple. People understand. Up until middle school, we only have 2 goals. Elementary has 2 goals. Love learning and learn to get along with other people.
Yep.
Love coming to school every day, have the fire just blaze in your eyes for learning, and then learn how to work well in a tight-knit tribe with other people. So one of my favorite things we do about this in elementary, which we could use a lot of this in government right now, is when there's a conflict in a school, usually if there's a persistent conflict in a class, like they'll either, if it's a big school, put you in a different classroom, or they might put you on different sides of the class, but the teacher's stepping into like, say, this is what you need to do. Stop this right now. At our schools, it doesn't work that way. We actually, either student that's in the conflict can call a conflict resolution session. They're led by a high schooler that's been trained in how to be a peacemaker. And they go through like an actual conflict resolution session that anybody that's been involved in marriage counseling understands well. And it starts with this. It starts with, why are we here? And we're here because heroes solve problems. They don't run from problems. And then the first person who called it gets a chance to speak, have it repeated back to them. And the second person gets a chance to speak, have it repeated back to them. Then they go into why it's happening. At the end of it, it's what's one concrete thing the other person can do moving forward to make this better. And that's a negotiation. Because you two might be in a conflict and Sawyer says, well, he looks at me funny and I don't want him to ever look at me again. Well, that doesn't work. Like you're in school together. But at the end of it, what happens, what the beautiful part of this is that an adult is not doing this. It's a high school student that's learning these traits of conflict resolution. And that applies to almost everything throughout the school. Our guides operate very Socratically. Like if you're asking them a question, they're responding with a set of options where you can find the answer on your own or with another question to help kind of catalyze your thought process. But at the end of the conflict resolution sessions, they shake hands and they go back into the studio. And, Jordan Peterson visited our school once and our first school, and he met with the high schoolers and he said, how do you guys handle bullying here? And literally, and I didn't even prep them for him coming in. I said, there's a really important person coming in. You might want to make this place look nice. That's basically what I said. That was just my way of getting free cleaning because they need to clean that place. And they just shook their head no. And he said, what do you mean? He said, we just don't have that here. And it's not because we select for students based on something like that. These kids start at 3 years old.
Yeah.
It's because what actually is actual bullying? Because it's an overused term, tremendously overused. It's a long-term persistent conflict with a power dynamic at play that somebody feels like they're trapped or helpless in. Mm-hmm. Well, this conflict resolution process completely takes that away. I've seen elementary kids call them on high school kids for not using the school properly and how they promised to do it. And the elementary kid was right, but they're empowered to do that.
Yeah.
So that's the idea, is that kids are capable of far more than what we challenge them with right now. When it comes to elementary, on average, we're moving about 2.5 grade levels a year. And in middle school, they're testing out of high school. Almost every one of them is. We go deep into the deep books of history. We don't have books you have to read at our school. You pitch your books that go towards what we call badge books. And I tell people all the time, reading is a foundational piece of all education. But the key about reading is, as Naval Ravikant, who's, you've probably heard of him, read what you love until you love to read. That's the key. So many of these kids are forced to read these things that are just boring to them. It's like nails on a chalkboard. Give them a comic book. That's what we literally do. Graphic novel or comic book. And I get it. They're not the best literature. I totally get it. But you're trying to develop a habit of loving to read. So I remember we did this. I remember I walked into our middle school one time. Gosh, I could talk about this for a long time, but I walked into our middle school one time and there's one boy and 3 girls sitting out reading during what we call drop everything and read. It's a time every day or every other day that we have specific reading time. They get to pick their book. When you're in middle school, you pitch it to your tribe, to your classmates on why it matters to your hero's journey in life, what you hope to learn from it, and is it harder than the last book you read? It's basically the requirements. In elementary, it's kind of way more loose. But I walked in the middle school and it was the 4 books I saw were The Da Vinci Code, The Boys Who Challenged Hitler, Atlas Shrugged, and one other, and Unbroken. These are the books they were electing to read on their own.
Wow.
And it's like the idea of like, learn to love to read. I can't wait. And look, the type of schools we operate, I'm not saying it's the answer for all the public schools. That's not what I'm trying to say. But there are so many innovative models out there that we could be serving students better. And just last thing I'll say about that is, in getting away from this idea, a very simple idea that 7-year-old boys shouldn't be in a desk all day, and then when they can't sit still, be medicated.
Yeah.
It's like, it is so wrong. It is so wrong because we have other methods. Like at our school, if you need to use the restroom, you can just use the restroom. You don't have to ask permission.
Oh, I hated that as a kid.
If you want a snack, there's freedom levels. Like they actually, as they're working through their work, they'll earn points. And then if they do a lot on the week before, it shows they're really focused and they'll have a higher freedom level, which says you can get a snack when you want to get a snack. You can, collaborate with other people when you want to. So they all want to be on this high freedom level, which is the only way to get there is by working hard. And so
sounds like America.
There you go. And that's it. It's about systems, the proper systems. So if you have a complicated organization, as I've built businesses, as things get more complicated, you have 2 choices. Build better systems for basically self-governance, or you can hire more people, which costs a lot of money. And often will complicate the complexity of your business. You need good systems first. That's what our school's built on, is good systems.
Yeah, that sounds like a school I'd love to go to. I mean, honestly, yeah, because, I feel like memorization is becoming less important as the world is moving the way that it's moving. I mean, AI.
Just being able to regurgitate.
It doesn't serve you anymore. So being able to critically think for yourself, collaborate with others, work hard, learn to love to read, learn how to learn. I mean, that's it.
Huge. By the way, every kid is born with that ability.
Yeah.
We actually work it out of them in traditional school.
Yeah.
That's why I say you don't have to teach any kid curiosity. They're all curious. It's like my sister called me the other day. She's reading this book that my wife recommended to her. And she said in the book, it talks about how don't play with your kids very much. Get them with other kids. And the whole reason was adults have lost their imagination. And by the way, there's a lot of that's a product of the traditional education system. And it is true. It's young kids are just naturally curious. If you just let them run and ask every single question they could possibly ask, and you just don't, it's exhausting. I have 7 kids. It's exhausting. But if you entertain that, you're going to have the fire in their eyes just be bright to learn.
So your mother would always feel guilty because Sawyer, there's 5 years between Sawyer and his brother. So they both had their own thing. But when you would be playing, doing what you were doing, she would go up to your room once in a while, or if you were in the living room, and she would sit down and want to play with you. And you would play with her about so long, and then you would just look at her like, how long are you going to stay here? Because she wouldn't do it the way that you wanted it done. And so finally she'd just be like, all right, you want me to leave you alone? And you'd be like, yeah. Because you had your way of doing it.
That's the same thing with, with this way our school operates with the high schoolers being the mentors. When they're teaching how to do something on math, it is so much more relatable to the younger kids.
It's received better.
To receive. I'm just telling you, it really is. And look, I know we have some great teachers out there. I totally understand that. But they are closer in age group and they look up to these older kids as heroes. And so it's a really fun thing to watch a 8-year-old kid walk into the high school room that we have and be fearless and just say, I need help. And they just have these great relationships. and then watch a high schooler, stop what they're doing to just like serve.
Yep.
And we call it, in our high school and middle school, you have a certain amount of servant leadership hours you have to accomplish to be able to move out of each studio, to graduate high school and move from middle school to high school. I can't remember how many hundreds of hours it is, but they serve a ton. And I tell them, guys, of all the things you're going to do, this is the thing that will be most meaningful to you in the long haul, is these kids who, when there's a graduation and there's all these little kids, and that's what's bringing tears to their eyes, because they see all these kids that they've impacted. And our teachers know that too. Like they impact these kids. So, it's that is, the schools have been one of the most fulfilling things I've ever done. And my hope is to just bring more options to kids that don't fit into the system, because there's so many out there. But I also love, I'll summarize with this. I tell people this quite often. If you can write well, speak well, and think critically, you're deadly. You can do very well. I think Jordan Peterson said something almost like that. But if you can do those things, think critically, write well, and speak powerfully, holy cow.
Gets you a long way.
It gets you a long way.
It does.
Yep, for sure.
You said you have 7 kids. When you look at the way the world's moving, or the state of Iowa, or just our nation's moving, how are you going about guiding them towards prosperity in the America that we hope to have? I mean, it's a very uncertain time as a young person. Every person my age or younger is thinking about AI displacing them. How getting a house is really challenging.
Paying for a family is
very challenging. But there's also a lot of opportunity out there as well.
Yeah.
And so I was just curious, being a father, what are you telling your kids, or what are you hoping they go towards, in this uncertain place we find ourselves in?
I think there's like underserved parts of the market that are out there that you can see. I think tech is far overserved right now. I think, there's that saying that opportunity lurks where responsibility has been abdicated. And I think there's been a lot of abdicated responsibility in our society right now. I think agriculture is it's not necessarily a responsibility, but there's opportunity there if you're willing to look in other areas. But I'll tell you from a baseline of like how I'm talking to the kids, you remember that football coach, Nick Saban?
Yep.
Alabama, right? I remember I was watching an interview he did once, and they're like, how did you do this? And by the way, those sports interviews are always just the worst. It's like, they always say the same. But Nick Saban actually said something. He was almost exhausted by the question. He said, look, there's just one way. There's only one way. And it's through tremendous hard work and discipline towards what you want to do.
Yeah.
So my point to my kids, as we look through like, some of the schooling that we do, and the unschooling that we do, is understand where your gifts and abilities meet the world. Like, what are you good at? Like, where's the opportunity lie? Even if you're not as passionate about it. I think this idea of following passion is wrong. Now, granted, over the long term, I think it can make sense. But first, like, where does opportunity present itself because you have a certain talent? In our schools, we say that we believe every child is a genius. And it's not that they all have a 140 IQ. It's Webster's dictionary that they're could be specifically gifted in a certain area.
Yeah.
And my goal as a dad is to help guide them towards what I see in them. And so, I have a son that really, he is really engineering analytical minded. And so we're really purposeful on technology. I try to limit technology as much as possible. But now with him, I'm thinking about, okay, what can he build with AI? Like, how can he use this to help him? And he's, he asked me the other day, he said, Dad, what's the biggest issue you're facing on your campaign with like that was causing the biggest headache? And I said, it's really like unread messages that I haven't responded to in emails. And so he literally went and built me a dashboard that ties into my Gmail. Doesn't have text message yet. He's working on it. That will like set reminders for me on messages and scan it to see what's important. I mean, he's 13. So like it's fun.
Incredible.
How really useful is it? I don't know yet, but the point more is he's learning to use these things as a tool. Now, that being said, I think going back to like, where did God give you gifts in this world? I think some people have that analytical engineering mind. Other people have like speaking, and they're really good at that, casting vision and helping inspire people. But when it comes to practicality, my hope is that some of them will work on some of the things we're talking about. Like, I would love the kids to I would love to have a farm that's diversified in so many ways that there's like different things that not each, because that's 7, but that the kids that want to be involved can be involved in. And that we can pass some of these food freedom laws and things like that help them like grow something and create an example for the next generation. But ultimately, my big message to the kids, whether it's me helping with their football or sports, is just that there's only one way. Like, look, one of my sons is a really gifted quarterback. He's a great thrower. I mean, just has a great arm. And he's practiced since he's like 7 years old just because he loves doing it. And I've said to him, look, you have this natural talent that you've built it, but you're really good at it. But that'll only get you so far. There's going to come a time very quickly where hard work is the thing that will beat out all of this. And so that's what I'm trying to get to them is like, number one, where's the opportunity presenting itself for you? And then just knowing the work ethic is what's going to provide you. So like, if you're doing something like this, like what you're doing right now, that it's this compounding effect, which is a book that I've had my kids read, is The Compound Effect. It's the one book I read every year just because it's so simple. Like this compounding effect of hard work that you might not see the payoff now, but you keep doing this, and you guys are seeing the payoff, but you keep doing this for 10 years and you have no clue what your reach could be. Yeah. But everybody's just given up. And this is where David Goggins, you know David Goggins? He's like, the younger generation, they just quit. Yep. And like, look, I actually reject the idea that the younger generation doesn't work. They're not coming to our communities. Like there's a lot of kids that want to work hard.
Oh yeah.
I have a couple of kids that help mow my lawn on the farm. I mean, some of these one of the kids is 10 and he's out there and he's like on time every week. They're working hard. Him and his older brothers, they want to work hard. But it is true that if you can take criticism and you can take, constructive feedback on how to do better, you are leaps and bounds ahead of the average person because they just hear this. Oh, and that's, by the way, probably a product of the school system there's only 2 grades anymore in school, A and not A. Mm-hmm. That's basically it, because it's either you got an A or you didn't do well enough. Yeah. And what'd you do wrong? It's like, where life isn't like that. It's like continuous improvement towards something. And that's what I hope my kids can see.
Yeah, that's really great. I was going to ask, we were going to do a rapid fire round. And one of the questions was, what's one book every American should read? Do you think it's The Compound Effect, or do you have another one?
Every American?
Well, maybe person. What do you think?
The Compound Effect I've found is just, fun because it's simple, it's short, and it's like what we all know. It's like, you just need to be reminded of it every year. It's like, look, if you start eating a cookie every single day, that's going to compound to you gaining 10 pounds by the end of the year. Like that all adds up. Same thing as if you decide to walk, 5 minutes every day, it's also going to compound, and you've cut out some of the sweets. But if I was going to recommend, my favorite books that I've been reading lately that are books on Iowa's history. And I mean this sincerely, about heroes of our past. And the reason I read them, and I read them to my kids, is because I'm trying to remind them that the same DNA that ran through this person that did this heroic thing runs through you. Mm. And there is no difference. You can do these things. When John Johnson, who was a trapper in the 1850s, moved to Iowa in 1860 or somewhere around there, when he went to the convention, the Republican State Convention in Des Moines, he walked from Webster City to Des Moines to participate in it. Yeah. And then he was elected as a delegate to the Chicago Republican Convention, which made Abraham Lincoln the next president. And he walked from Webster City to Chicago. Like, he did that because he had something he believed in. Yep. And I firmly believe, and this is something I've done with my kids since they're very young, and my dad did it well with me. I tell stories. I have this whole series of stories I used to tell my young boys that are called the pocket watch stories. And it was that they'd wake up in our farmhouse and they'd find this watch. And that then when they'd find the watch, they'd pick it up, open it up, and they'd be like, they'd walk out of the room, and all of a sudden they're transported back to when my great-grandparents lived there and my grandpa was a young kid. And they'd like get into some crazy adventure with them. And I ended up telling them a story about our family history through that. But my kids loved those stories. And I just tell people, like, kids love stories. Mm-hmm. And here's the beauty of some of our stories or about telling stories. We have true stories in our families and in our state history that will inspire them to know they're capable of extraordinary things. Yep. Mm-hmm. So if you go to the thrift bookstore in Cedar Rapids or somewhere, go to the Iowa history section and find these awesome books written about Iowa's heroes. Mm-hmm. And just tell them to your kids and be like ask difficult questions about it. Yeah. And like just inspire them to know that like this is you. This literally is you. And like, think of what you're going to do. One of my favorite questions of the school, and I still do this with my kids when they ask me a question, they're like, Dad, I can't figure this out or that out. I said, you know what? That sounds like a big problem, complicated problem. And I cannot wait to hear how you figure out how to solve it. And it's just like, you can solve this problem.
Yeah.
Anyways.
That's awesome. We have a segment on here we like to call Tip of the Hat. And it's what is a person, who is a person in your life, or what is a thing you use, or what is a brand that you like or you represent that you want to tip your hat to and say, this is an amazing person, brand, thing I use every day that
They're doing it right.
That are doing it right, and I want to give my flowers to them. And every time we ask this, people usually give out multiple hats, so you can do that. But what are some of those things for you?
You know, in context of me like running for office, I'd tip my hat to, Kenzie Manufacturing, Latham Seeds, to these guys who have been doing it for 3 generations in our state, even when things get really hard, and they keep going. Even when the deck seems stacked against them, they keep going. And there's many Iowa homegrown businesses. Like I every time I talk to one of them, I'm just sort of in awe of keeping to the mission.
Yep.
And like knowing that this is like way bigger than a financial return. They're like affecting the lives of people every day. And then personally, I've, mentioned him. I've watched as my farm partner, Ryan Wallace, is like went deep in like the community with us and, worked on our farm together, taught me so much. Like I tip my hat to him and people like that for sure. The obligatory answer, which is also very true, is my wife.
Yes.
It's very true. And I'm not saying it because I have to, I'm obliged. I'm saying it because, your marriage determines a lot of outcomes in your life.
Yep.
In many ways. I've went through divorce. I've been remarried. And I understand deeply how important this relationship is. In part, I understand it because I didn't do it right the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to, work hard to rebuild those relationships. And I have, my former spouse is supporting my campaign and we have a great relationship now, but it took time. And, in the first 10 years of when I was married, really, I've never talked about this anywhere publicly, but really I didn't maintain my marriage because I was so focused on like, what am I going to do to get myself out of this place I grew up in and I want to accomplish and succeed? And then you fast forward to, I'm remarried now and my wife basically had to push me into this.
Yeah, I'll just say, I haven't met your wife, but a woman who married somebody and has 7 kids and then says, you really should run for governor. That is a woman that I need to meet because kudos to her.
Yeah.
No, she is
pushing you to be the best you can be.
She is. And I mean this sincerely. Now, granted, it's not an easy marriage. No marriage is easy. I try to tell my friends this, I've counseled people out of marital problems because I've went through them and I understand like, look, stick the course. Have like, none of this is easy. It's not meant to be easy. Attention in everything is good. Attention in a relationship, you don't want somebody that agrees with you every step of the way. You want somebody that's going to challenge you to be better. And my wife definitely does not agree with me every step of the way. And she challenges me to be better in that way. And also, we all get to the points where we're thinking about like, there's a million reasons not to do something like what I'm doing. And then she brings me back to the reality of like, look, this is it. This is your opportunity. And by the way, there's more than one way to win this race. We've single-handedly, I believe, not single-handedly, but we've in large part shifted a narrative in our state that I think could help people live healthier lives regardless of whether I'm elected or not. That alone is worth it for me to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so all this stuff, the negative comments I read, all of those things, when you've been through the things I've been through, especially on the marriage side, there's not one thing somebody could say about me that I haven't said 10 times over already myself. And I've pulled myself out of that with good Christian brothers that have helped me really realize God has more for your life. He has big plans for you. And my wife has been so big on that too. So those would be my hat tips.
Amen to that.
That's awesome.
Amen to that. What can people do to get involved or see what you're up to or support you?
How do people find you?
Yeah, how do people find you?
Well, we're doing, ZachLahn.com is the easy answer. ZachLahn.com. We're doing town halls. I think we're 23 days left. Gosh, I've lost count. We're almost there. June 2nd is the primary. I need support. I need people to go out and vote on June 2nd. Early voting starts in just a couple days. You can actually go in and vote. By the way, we have so many people who've said, you're the first Republican I'm ever going to vote for, because you're actually talking about the issues that matter. I'm changing my registration to vote for you. In Iowa, you can change your registration at the polling place to vote. So I'm a Republican. Join the Republican Party, even if it's just for a day. Vote for us. If you for Republicans that are out there, please get out and vote. That's my big message. We have a huge opportunity to change the trajectory of our state for the long term. I really sincerely believe that. And the movement that's kind of come alongside this, which has been, humbling and surprising to me, just how many people are saying, like, yes, this Iowa First message is the right way to go. That's been unbelievable. And so I'm hoping that translates to going out to the poll on June 2nd and voting. And of course, if any of your listeners want to chip in some money, we'll never say no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Zach,
awesome.
we really appreciate you making the trip. It's been an absolute pleasure and honor to have you on here. Guys, if you got any value from the show, share it out with the people that you know. Leave a review on Spotify or Apple. We love you guys. We appreciate you. And we'll see you back here next week for another episode.